table is talking to you. Watchtower, haven't a clue. JW's falling like flies, waking up from the years of the lies. The round table is talking to you, clearing the way so you can leap too. You're watching The Round Table, where we discuss the Watchtower, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and how they're falling apart around the world. Stick around for some truths. Enjoy the reality, only at The Round Table.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We have a very special guest with us on the round table. Myself and Jimmy and Deasis are here with Mrs. Bridget Pfister. Why can I never get the introduction right? Either I'm calling Deasis Jimmy or I'm calling her Mrs.
It's all the same thing.
You're 0 for 3.
Sister Pfister here.
Round tables, dude.
All states are not.
Bridget is with us today.
Hi.
Bridget has a channel. It's just your name, right?
Yeah, it's
Bridget
my name.
Pfister. So as always, I'll have a link in it. You guys got to go watch it. She's funny as hell. Very, very good stuff.
You are funny.
You're gonna.
Yes,
but it's
hilarious.
very funny, but it's also very to the point.
Yeah.
Very well done. Lots of good information, but it keeps you laughing. So if you don't laugh, you cry, right? So
Well,
maybe
there
you'll do
you
a
go.
little bit of both.
What is that?
basically.
What is that new thing you're doing right now? Sex in the Watchtower?
Yeah, so my latest series is Sex in the Watchtower, and it's a look at how the Watchtower has talked about sex over the years since, about the 1970s.
Got to check
It's
that
bad.
out.
It's so
hilarious.
Got to
bad.
check that.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah,
All right.
lots
but-
of pearl clutching.
Good deal. But what we're here to talk about today is first Jimmy had a pair of elders come ambush him. And then that didn't work out so well for the elders, so they brought a circuit overseer.
And
And
the coordinating body of elders.
that's right.
Pretty soon the
Yeah, and
congregation
Kobe.
just came and
Yeah, and that's
Wow,
that's
dude.
what happened.
This
He
is what
had-
happened.
He had someone from the congregation just show up at his door.
A week after the, Jesus, I done lost count. The second set of,
Jeez, man.
the third recording we did after those guys showed up.
guy can't even smoke a cigarette on his porch
This one
anymore,
came.
man.
Jimmy,
This
your
one came up.
congregation really gives a shit.
Apparently. I don't know.
They forgot.
So this
Maybe
was
you
a
should
week
come back.
later.
I mean,
I mean, damn.
They just-
I'm a little mixed on
Let's not
this
say we
one
did.
because on the one hand, I can kind of respect that if somebody sincerely thinks you're the wayward sheep or whatever, they want to come help
sold
you.
that.
I mean,
You're
I
so
kind of get
wayward.
that, but on the other hand, it's pretty hubris to show up at somebody's house unannounced, uninvited. Wait a minute, that's what we did.
Yeah, we're
Entire
so
time.
all
I
the
was gonna say,
time.
we
so
were kind
did
of
that.
all
And we feel really bad.
guilty of that.
And claim that we're going to set people straight, and that's what this guy
That's his
tries to do.
Yeah.
And he showed up by himself. So once again,
mistake number 2.
Yeah,
once again, I had just woke up. And everybody that knows me knows that I need at least a cup of coffee before I talk to anybody.
Yeah, you do.
So yeah, I'm so not a morning person. So yeah, whenever issues hit me in the morning,
Either one of you guys.
I am not a happy camper.
not at all.
So he shows up, and I'm looking down. He's coming up the driveway. I'm like, oh God, what is this? Jeez, are you kidding me? Another unexpected guest.
Yep.
He gets out, and I mean, it's an older brother in the congregation. I mean, the guy's really cool, but he is by himself, just by himself, which I found really odd that he just showed up at my house by himself. So I'm first thinking, well, maybe he wants me to, change him over to the dark side. That was my first
That's right.
thought.
Show him
One
the
can
true
only
powers
hope.
of the
You know,
Force.
Could be.
Come join us.
I got free cookies.
But then he started in.
What's with the cookies?
But then he started in on, hey, it concerned me what you said a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to address that.
Oh, he was there.
He
the
was-
first time,
yeah,
right? He was one of the guys.
Yeah, the
Okay,
very
right.
first elder ambush, the one where it says,
The one where they were calling you an apostate when
yes,
you left the room.
yes,
Yeah.
and
Ah.
that's what education gets you. Oh, Jimmy, you believe in
Don't you learn nothing,
You
Jimmy?
believe in what the Bible says?
Don't need no book learning.
Don't you
Yeah.
learn nothing,
Yeah, so
Jimmy?
this guy,
Don't you?
so this guy was in the car. They left him in the car. So that whole time, those two brothers were
was in
talking to him.
timeout.
He was in the car. So
Did they leave sleep in the keys?
I don't know, but he did
died of heat
he
stroke.
did get out
Seriously.
later, like while we were like 45 minutes into talking to those guys. He did ask if he could pee. I said, yeah, there's the woods right
Oh,
there.
that was the P guy.
That was the pee guy.
Okay.
The P guy.
This is getting
All right,
by the
all right.
minute.
Welcome to the round table,
Hey!
Bridget.
I take it back.
There's dancing at the end.
Oh, great.
the lost sheep theory. No. If he was there, I had
Yeah.
forgotten he was the guy who was there the first time.
Yeah.
He thinks he's going to do what the two elders couldn't.
And
Yeah.
the circle.
This
He's
is
the one.
pure hubris.
Wow.
Well, he didn't know about the CO though.
Everybody, yeah, he knew about it.
Oh yeah, he would have known because this was after the
Yes,
CO.
because you got
What's happening?
Diasis.
Paul's.
Well, that was Diasis' phone going off, and so we had to pause while he turned it off. And on that happy note, we're going to listen to the first segment. I'm going to play the first segment of the recording, and as always, we'll come back and talk about it.
Morning. What's up? Good. How are you? Just woke up.
Come by, see how you doing.
I'm good. How are you?
Can't complain a whole lot.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. So what congregation you going with now?
If I go, I'm going to right now.
Let's see. You got a brother over
Oh yeah,
there? Yeah. What's his name?
Jason.
I don't think I ever met him.
Yeah, he hasn't been going very often. He's only been to a couple meetings. I haven't been going to too many meetings my damn self. Sorry. I just woke up.
Yeah. Are you working now?
Yeah. I'm an Aflac agent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you work at home or something?
Yeah. I have an office in there.
Oh, okay. Well, see, all this is new. See, I don't have a computer, none of that stuff. So all this stuff's new to me.
Oh, really?
People work at home, yeah. I don't even have a cell phone.
No, really.
Well, I had one, but everywhere I go, I couldn't get out. You know, I had them for emergency breakdown.
Yeah.
Everywhere you couldn't get out. So what good was it? Couldn't get out of my house. Couldn't call for help if I needed it. You know, I was just wasting time.
Yeah.
Well, look, the reason I come by here, last time we talked, you said something about that in the book in there, talking about that Jesus was the mediator
Right.
for the new covenant. Okay. Do you have the bound volumes?
I do have the bound volumes.
Do you have the 08 Watchtower?
Probably.
Okay. In the 08 Watchtower, and I think it's 1215. I think it's page 13. It deals with that, and it explains it really well how that is. You know, he's a mediator, and it goes back, shows that Moses was a mediator too, also. But if you remember, now, who was God's laws given to?
Moses. The
Okay.
Israelites.
To the nation of Israel.
Right.
That was not given to the world. Right.
Right.
There's this distinction in there.
Right.
Okay. Well, it compared Moses as mediator then with Jesus, and Jesus being the mediator between Jehovah and the 144,000, as him being what they call, example, like an attorney or something. You know,
Yeah.
going back and forth. See, so in the same sense, now, even though the laws were given to the nation of Israel, mankind in general could benefit if they applied it, especially if they joined themselves to the nation of Israel. They didn't have the same rights and privileges as a natural-born Israelite. In other words, they didn't have land inheritance, stuff like that, some of the other rights, but they still could be part of that organization. And same way they with us too. You know, the scriptures are written to the anointed. You know, all the letters says to the anointed or to the chosen ones. I'm not one of the chosen ones. I'm one of the other sheep. So them letters were not directly written to me, but I can benefit from it by reading what Jehovah's mind is on the matter and finding out his standards. So in the same sense, that's why he was a mediator.
Yeah, I understand Watchtower's explanation of it. It just contradicts, in my opinion, what the scripture says. That there's one mediator between God and man, that man, Jesus Christ. It doesn't say there's one mediator between an organization. It doesn't mention anything like that. It just straight up says that there's one mediator between God and man, and that man, Jesus Christ.
Okay.
So that kind of, if you read the scripture for what it says, it says he's the mediator for all mankind.
Okay. But in the long run, is it really that important? I'll give you an example. You know, the scripture about Jesus gave the example, those come back in resurrection will not be married. Well, when I was new in the truth, I remember that, and society applied that to the other sheep. Well, now they're not saying that, because even back then I understood him be talking to the anointed. But of course now the society said that. It was applied to the anointed, so if you had asked me, I'd say, well, the society applies to the anointed, even though I thought it applied to the other sheep. Well, one brother read that, and he just threw him for a loop. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, you know, is it really going to change anything? What, you know, we don't know what's going to happen in the new system exactly. All we know is what the Bible says. We're going to be happy. We ain't going to have no problems. That's the main thing. One thing else to think about, what we talked about a bit. You know what the other religions teach. You know what's going on. If this ain't God's organization, what hope do any of us have? It's just
That's a question a lot of people ask. But my thinking on that is, you know, the organization came in play 140 years ago. You know, that's when Russell, you know, reignite, or I guess founded Watchtower. And the first one was done in 1879, I think. 1879. I think that's when it was. What about all the people that lived before that didn't have an organization to go to?
Well, okay, now the Bible addresses that. If you go down the stream of time, if you read the Bible and you look from the first century down to when the organization was set up, 1914 and all that stuff, it's just like a road map. You know, the Bible said, you know, Jesus said that there would be somebody come in and scatter weeds among the wheat. Somebody asked him, you know, should we gather? He said, no, let them grow till the end, then we'll separate them.
So all the people that lived, let's just say from 100 AD to 1870, what's their hope if they didn't have an organization to go to?
Well, there were some of the anointed evidently all through that time period.
But they weren't involved with an organization, but they still got to be anointed. And
Well, a lot of them were still in the churches and stuff, but they knew what was being taught. You know,
so
that's
their
where
heart condition was good.
Well, evident, yeah, someone's heart condition. But the thing of it is, the Bible said it could be a resurrection of both the righteous and the unrighteous. He wasn't drawing people at that time, maybe individuals here and there. But like I said, he just let them grow. See, in the scheme of things, you know, look at all them faithful men in the past. They all died. Just like a good chance we're going to die for in this system, or a chance we'll die for in this system. But that's what the hope is, a resurrection for. See, these people will be resurrected under brand new conditions and have a chance to learn what we're learning.
Okay, so that's the first section where Jimmy once again gets into the mediator bit. But what was up with the 20 questions
I don't
at the
know.
beginning? He wanted to know everything about you.
This guy's completely disingenuous. Like, he knew good and well you weren't going to meetings. Why is he asking questions about
And
what
asking about my
congregation?
brother.
Who's your
and
brother?
this
Where do
and
you
that.
work? What is he, the freaking FBI?
It sounds like it. Sounds
Yeah,
like
that's-
it. Watchtower Mafia.
That's part of that.
They'll
Part of
find
that
you.
JW
They'll find
training we had, though. I mean, you saw that all
Yeah.
the time. People at the hall knowing, like, if someone was disfellowship, knowing that they weren't going to meeting, knowing they would know and still ask questions as if they didn't know. Oh, how's so and so? You know how so and so.
Is he trying to do
We
reverse
did do that,
sheep
man.
on me?
Yeah, we would.
Is he trying to do
Going
reverse
to the meetings lately?
Oh, maybe so. Maybe he's trying to do reverse one. But then this is not related to your conversation, but
No.
he said, I don't even have a cell phone. And you guys talk about that a little bit. I'm like, you need to get a cell phone. Go to jwfax.com. That's the first thing you need to do with that cell phone. But okay, then of course, mediator is the first thing. It's always the mediator.
Well,
Always.
before we do that,
Yeah, go
though,
ahead.
why is this guy pretending that he has bound volumes memorized? There is no way that he just like he prepared hard for this, but then trying
You
to be
think
all
he did?
trying to be all casual, like, well, do you have the bound volumes? Because the 08, I believe it
Yeah.
was 1215. Oh, come on.
Evidently.
Nobody has the Watchtower from 2008 about
Yeah.
mediators memorized. Come
Right.
on.
And then you
Right.
whipped
That's
it right
true.
back out. You're like, you know, they're uninspired.
Well, I
that
think-
was
no, I think
also
she-
the
How else would he know
Watchtower.
this?
I think she's right. I think he prepared because he
Well, that didn't
zeroed
work by the
in.
time this thing
Yeah.
ends.
He zeroed in on that one thing
And then
immediately.
Jimmy just
after-
obliterated
Yeah,
it.
he really did.
He
So I
had
think
no
she's
idea
right.
who he was dealing with.
No. I like how you just came back. You're like, well, you know, the Watchtower from what's it called says, you know, that we're
Says who's
uninspired.
Yeah.
Now,
They're uninspired.
He references that 08 Watchtower, and I
He's like,
didn't
well, I don't
read
know
it.
about that.
I didn't read it before this, so I'm just going off what the guy said. He
As soon as you
says,
take J-Dubs off script, they don't know what to do.
Right.
yeah, the guy says that the 08 Watchtower compares Jesus to Moses. He says that Moses was the mediator for Israel in the same way, basically, that Jesus is the mediator for what they refer to as the new spiritual Israel. Which
He's
it does,
evidently-
but that doesn't work because Israel was all of God's people. He tries to make an analogy. Worldly people compared to God's people, and it doesn't work because if Moses is Jesus, then Israel is all of God's people, and Moses is the mediator for all of God's people, and all the other nations are what Watchtower would call worldly people.
Yeah.
In which case, Jesus is the mediator for all of God's people, who would be all of Jehovah's Witnesses in Watchtower speak, and everyone else who's not a witness would be the nations surrounding the worldly people.
Right.
So there's no room for the claim that Jesus is only the mediator for what they call spiritual Israel.
Well, I think we should also consider the little bit of anti-Semitism here because, like, Israel is the Jews, right? So the first iteration there is actual Jews, actual Israel, actual mediator, right? And so they're basically like co-opting
That's true.
Israel. And yet they don't like Jews. They're all about these proud and stiff-necked people. In the meantime,
That's a
Jehovah's
good
Witnesses
point.
are about the most proud and stiff-necked people
Yeah.
I've ever met.
Yeah.
How is that okay?
Yeah.
Like it's
And in
How
the
come Jesus
discussion,
didn't call them Jehovah's Witnesses back then?
that is
Jesus
a great
never even used the
question.
name.
He never used the name because it didn't exist until
Yeah.
what, year 1290?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I've
that's
heard
true.
some, and I want to do a video about
about
this. I heard some interesting information. There's a guy who worked on the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's not pronounced Nehemiah Gordon.
Yeah.
And he's a Hebrew scholar. Worked on the Dead Sea Scrolls. The guy's no slouch. I have mad respect for him. He actually found documents.
actually knows what he's talking
scrolls.
about?
Yeah, he really knows what he's talking about. His scrolls going back to the 9th century that put Jehovah as far back as the 9th century.
Really?
So we've heard the 12th for a long time and the whole Catholic monk
So,
thing.
so it's still 800 years
But
later.
it's still, that's the point I'm getting at.
you know, it's
And-
only
and
800
still-
years.
It's still 800
After.
years later. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who thinks they know how to pronounce what. The bottom line is, in the oldest
don't.
manuscripts, there's no vowel points. So
Yep.
nobody knows how to say it.
Right.
Nobody knows the
But
name.
there's-
because God's
another-
name is so important. You know, he really wanted us to know that bad.
Right.
There's another point, though, here. If God is what he is all jacked up to be, you know, this all-knowing, all-powerful, almighty being, can't he do better than this?
Yeah, we talked about
that's
that
been
last
talked about
time.
quite
Yeah.
a bit.
Like, really?
I want you to know my
Seriously?
name, and I'm going to take out the vowels. It's DSSS. Figure it out. Yes.
Like, do you hear something deflating?
Not Deasis ego now that he's
No.
compared himself to God.
No, not at all.
Let the comments,
So,
let the
okay.
comments begin.
I have humility.
I'm so humble.
Yeah.
There's nobody as
I'm
humble as
so
me.
humble.
Moses was the humblest man on earth except for me.
Except for
Okay, so he
that.
does the comparison that fails. It's an utter fail. The Moses to Israel to the nations, the Jesus to, the
all that rigmarole.
spiritual Israel to the nations. And then he tries to say, the scriptures, meaning the letters, the New Testament, that's all written to the anointed. And I'm thinking, that's because according to the actual New Testament, all Christians are anointed, which Jimmy very clearly points out that the scripture, 1 Timothy 2:4? Is it 2:4?
I think so.
And it doesn't matter if I'm wrong because we've got it on so many videos now.
Yeah,
Look
it's
it
on
up.
every video.
Where he says that he's the mediator for everybody. There's one mediator between God and men, a man, Jesus Christ.
And if
There
any
is
of
no
you-
exception.
And I just want to say this too. If there's any active witnesses that are wondering what the hell we're talking about, believe it or not, official Jehovah's Witness doctrine is that Jesus is not your mediator. The 144,000 are. So if you're wondering what we're talking about, that's what we're talking about.
Though to be honest, sometimes the aces, I don't know what we're talking
Did
about.
you
either.
ever meet an anointed person, a partaker of the emblems in the Jehovah's Witness world, who you actually thought was capable of mediating between you and God? Because
Nope.
I never met one that wasn't nuts.
My
I was going to
dad-
say, I met one
my,
who seemed
my
Was your
dad
dad-
was a partaker.
off the rock.
I
And
met
he was a
one that was
wonderful
really cool.
man. But the funny thing is, he was actually an extremely humble person. And I couldn't see my dad slaughtering anybody because he would always forgive everybody for everything, even if he shouldn't. So I just don't see.
Sometimes
I
I
don't know.
wonder if your dad, if he would have, lived long enough to, or be out there enough to be on the internet like we, the younger generations are nowadays, if he would have even stayed a witness, he probably would have.
You know what I think it is? This is what I think. First of all, he had
He was too cool for that.
he
shit.
had an emotional attachment
Yeah.
to the family that found him because he lived in rural Louisiana as a kid. And they came to his door working on assigned territory, and they were really nice people. And her name was Sister Doucette. I never met her husband. He had died by the time I was old enough to know who she was. Wonderful woman, wonderful person, amazing cook, old Cajun lady, just
Cool.
outstanding. Very close to, my dad was very, very close to their family.
Yeah.
So he had an emotional attachment. That's one thing. But the other thing is, my dad studied the Bible like nobody ever knew. And if you actually read the actual Bible free of Watchtower, it tells you you're anointed if you believe in Jesus. So
Right.
I just assumed that
No.
maybe my dad figured,
Don't read the actual
that's
Bible.
what it actually says.
Then that's what it
how
means
I
for
actually
me.
feel.
So in
Read
this
our
construct that I live in,
Yes.
I
of the
must be
Bible.
I
anointed.
must be anointed.
Well, see,
I see.
Not the
what I
actual
assume,
Bible.
yeah.
When I was waking up, that was one of the things, your mind is going through so many different things when you're waking up.
Oh God, is it?
And I was like, am I one of the anointed? Not in what Watchtowers taught everyone, but
Right.
am I? Well, why not? Why couldn't I be one?
Yeah.
Because I feel a love for God. I have compassion for folks, and I'm not really doing god awful things out there. Why not? So that's a thought I had.
It's interesting you should say that, because when I first started exiting and actually reading the actual Bible and actually reading what scholars really say about things, before I got into the phase that I'm finally reached now as an agnostic, it hit me, wait, the Bible says everybody's going to heaven.
Yeah.
New Testament actually
Yeah.
says everybody
Yeah.
who believes in Jesus and has faith and all, they're all going to heaven. That's
Yeah.
what Paul says, and I don't like Paul anymore.
Oh, pause it.
And
Yeah,
it still
and I'll-
doesn't make
I'll-
sense.
I'll do a
because
video on
compared
that
to the
sometime,
Old
but-
Testament, they talk about paradise earth.
Well, see,
If
but they
anything.
don't. That's just the thing. They really, really don't. The thing that people don't understand about, if Christians don't understand about Jews, is that Jews don't have a definitive idea about the afterlife. It's very fuzzy.
Yeah.
They believed in a resurrection and the last day, and that's about where it stopped. They really didn't know what it was going to be like. They didn't really have a solid theology about any kind of paradise. Jews are very grounded, and Judaism is very grounded in the life now, being a good life. It's material in focus, not in a in a negative way, but in your family being well provided for, of the land. I mean, all
important
those
things.
the important
Yeah.
things.
Maybe
Right.
that's what Psalm 37 was about. I don't know.
You know, the Jewish, the l'chaim, to life, their
Yeah.
toast is to this life, not that
Right.
one.
Wait, did
this
you
one.
say toast?
Yeah.
Whoa.
I
All
love
right, we gotta do it.
toast,
We don't
especially,
do that.
especially
Whoa,
with
Let's do
Nutella.
whoa.
toast. We got to toast.
Oh,
Oh,
Every
wait.
time we mention the toast, you got to
Say.
toast. All right.
Oh.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So it's
Where's the
different.
Macallan?
That's for later.
After watching that music video, I'm sorry, it's gone.
Well, yeah. So also
John.
on that point about you can't read the real Bible and actually study it and remain a Jehovah's Witness because it doesn't make any sense.
You can't.
I will take that a step forward and tell you what pretty much ended faith for me was going to a Southern Baptist university for my undergrad. Your faith cannot survive 6 college credit hours of Bible history.
Right.
Because it's total crap.
Yeah.
And that's not because Satan is in control of this world. It's because when you study it objectively, it just doesn't stack up. It's not in harmony like Christian apologists and religious apologists claim it is.
Yeah. It's because when Satan doesn't rule the world, you actually find out that Satan didn't exist in Jewish theology until Second Temple after the exile from Babylon. They borrowed it from Babylonian Zoroastrianism. So when I found that out, that was the beginning of the end. Because if there's no Satan in original
Then what's
Judaism,
the point?
then what is any of it?
Yep.
Nothing's sacred anymore, because even Jesus talks about Satan as if he's a real person. Well, that brings that into question, because if he talks about Satan as a real person, but in the original Jewish theology they didn't believe in a Satan, why is Jesus talking about Satan? And then there's all kinds of questions that come out of that.
Well, the whole thing's silly anyway, because when you look at the original story of Genesis, it doesn't make any sense. If God's all powerful and he's in control, I mean, and humans are his children, I would never do anything. I wouldn't set my kids up for failure like that.
I always
I'm
thought-
going to put this delicious tree in the middle, and it's gorgeous, isn't it? But don't you touch it. Don't you want to touch it? Just touch it.
I never understood
I'm gonna
why he
kill
was
you.
setting them up like that.
But
I
let's-
never understood that.
Let's
And
get back
Satan
into
is the bad guy for telling them the truth.
But that's the thing. No, he's not, because Satan isn't in the story.
He isn't
There's
real.
a snake in the story that Christians came to want to call Satan, and there's some argument that could be made that because Jesus calls the original, or was it in? No, it's in
The
Revelation. The original
dragons,
serpent, the devil,
yeah.
and
The original
Satan.
serpent, yeah.
But that all got written way, way later.
Yeah.
There is no concept of a fall of man in traditional Judaism. They wrote the book. They don't believe in the fall of man didn't come till Calvinism in the 15th century, I believe it was, 14th or 15th century. That's when the fall of man stuff started. So where was it all the thousands of years before? Why didn't God tell the Jews about the fall of man? Because they still don't believe in it.
Right.
I'd like to know more about that, actually. Unless you masturbate.
Okay, so we're way off track. As usual, way
Do you
off
regret
track.
inviting me yet?
Oh, no, never. It makes it so much funner. Funner?
Funner,
More
not a
funner?
word.
Funner.
Funner?
I like
More fun?
I got to
Funner's
see
a
your
good
sex in
Funner should be a word.
Watchtower and the Watchtower videos.
Oh, you got to go
all
watch
right.
them there.
Okay,
Joe.
so he talks about all the scriptures written to the anointed. Yeah, it's because everyone who's a Christian is anointed, and if you actually read the Bible, and Jimmy says that the scripture applies to everyone in 1 Timothy, and to which this guy says, in the long run, is it really that important?
Only when you can't answer the question does it
Who
become
cares about
unimportant.
the Bible, right? Let's
I mean,
just,
it's not
just
important.
go with it, man.
Okay, so
Stop resisting.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
And the later discussion about whether or not the governing body is inspired or infallible or not. So if it's really not that important at this point, then why is the fact that, somebody smokes or they took a blood transfusion or they had sex 20 years ago or whatever
Why is that
we
important?
got disfellowshipped for, why is that important?
Yeah. And I thought of that too when he said, all we know is, and I wrote it down as we gonna, because that's how he said, all we know is we gonna be happy and ain't gonna have no problems.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, how do you know
now.
that?
Almost deceased with such logic.
But here's the thing. How do you know that? If the scripture directly says Jesus is the mediator for everyone, but that's not important, what could be more important if you're a Christian
Right.
than
About
that
that.
being true or not? Then
Just let the
how do you
governing body
know
do it for us.
that we're going to live in a paradise where nobody ain't got no problems either? How do
I
you know
foresee
anything?
lots of problems with the paradise, actually.
There are. I did
Actually,
a video
I would
on
Like, you
why
got
it's
no
impossible.
engineers, nobody who knows how to run a power plant. Like, where are they going to get their polyester pantyhose from?
What my biggest problem with the Paradise Earth thing is that if the Earth is not designed to last forever. The solar system isn't designed for eternity. The sun is going to burn out in about 5 billion years. And in order for it to work, God would have to refuel the sun, which means God created the sun imperfectly to begin with.
Oh, God.
And there's the whole law of entropy. The entire the whole galaxy, the whole universe, it obeys the law of entropy, which presumably God put into effect, which would mean there's no way the Earth could last forever without him constantly monkeying with the system.
It's not real.
I know. I'm just saying. I'm an agnostic, so I respect everybody's ability to believe.
After this.
And here's the thing.
Can I say with certainty that there is no?
I'm not a materialist.
But there's always the hope.
But I'm not a materialist for solid evidentiary reasons, because the math doesn't work for life to arise from non-living matter using random chance in a finite universe. It doesn't work.
I kind of feel that way too.
So, but I'm not.
Especially
I also don't believe an
progression.
old dude with a cane and a beard created it all.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't do that either. So I don't know. I'm somewhere in
Too
between.
many flaws.
I just want to know with
system.
paradise, like, how do these people think that they're going to live in an agrarian society when they have no idea? Like, they can't plant things. They don't know how to take care of animals. They have no idea what plants they can eat, what they can't eat. Like,
That's true.
And if you're talking about a situation like they teach where all the animals are suddenly going to become herbivores, pretty soon you're going to have a desert.
Yep.
A whole bunch of people in ratty meeting clothes standing around looking at each other with all these overrun population of rabbits and deer and normal prey animals because nothing eats them
nothing's
anymore.
going to eat anything else. Yeah. That's in my video too.
And we're all just going to be standing there like, this is so great.
But Bridget, you are forgetting the catch-all solution to every paradise problem. The new scrolls. All that stuff's going to be in the new scrolls.
Totally forgot about the new
Even
scrolls.
though
Gotta get
that
there,
passage has nothing to do.
Or as my uncle once told me, you don't have to understand, just believe it.
Just do it.
How well has that worked out for humanity in the past?
Not so much.
Okay, so I don't even know where we're on. Okay, the next thing he says that the organization was set up in 1914.
Yeah. I wrote that down.
But God's always had one.
I mean, we're not dealing with a very smart JW here.
Why would God need an organization anyway?
Thank you. Why can't he speak to us?
Yeah, that's
Why does he need a few?
We're imperfect, the Aces.
Oh,
That's
okay.
why.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
but he's not.
But the governing
Yeah,
body.
I've
If
never
he were so
understood
perfect,
that.
he would be able to speak to us.
And you know
since
what's
he
amazing
made
about
us.
that? There's no
Right.
scripture anywhere at all in the Bible whatsoever that says that God can't talk to people. In fact, it does
Thank
say
you.
that God talked to Moses.
Right?
Directly to Moses, face to face. Jesus is supposed to be Moses 2.0 because Moses talked to God face to face. So apparently God's perfectly capable of talking to imperfect people. He just chooses not to. And you know what we call parents who don't talk to
Yeah,
their children
I
in
was
the
just
United
thinking
States?
I was just thinking that. Let me write a letter to my daughter, give it to somebody, to give it to somebody, to give it to somebody. That
In a
Read it in
language
another
she
language.
you
can't
better believe
read.
in me or I'm going to kill you.
Right.
Because I'm a damn good dad.
Yeah.
And you better do everything I say.
And I always like to tell people, I have no problems with anybody having faith, believing in God or the Bible or any of that. But what I say is you need to apply the knowledge that you have to the faith that you believe in.
Right.
You can't just say it's okay if you don't understand it, just believe it. No, you have to understand it. It has to make sense. And you have to
That's
have
where all religion
at least
screws up.
experiential evidence.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a materialist, although I've never had anything like that happen to me, I do not deny people their own personal experiences because I can't disprove it. So it's not for me to tell you it didn't happen.
Sure.
Right. So at least have that if you're going to believe
where I'm
something. But if you're
I'm in the
listening
middle.
to some guy on a stage tell you what to believe because the dusty old book says so, but you have no proof that it's true,
You haven't tested
it just
it.
doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, I talk a lot about, God doesn't exist. Like, I'm pretty open about being an atheist. But I do think, I tried to believe for a long time. I tried harder than most to be a believer. And I just don't have the believer gene. But I will say that I do admire the ability to have faith. I admire that, some people have the ability to do that. I think it's really cool. And if it's a positive force in your life, That's great.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where I'm at.
I don't have it, and I don't feel like having somebody try to shove it down my throat. So it's a respect thing, right?
Yeah.
We all have to respect each other's beliefs, and the Jehovah's Witnesses are some of the most disrespectful people on the planet
Yes.
when it comes
Amen.
to that.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, because if you don't believe the way that they do, then you're
wrong.
Something's wrong with you.
Then you deserve to die.
You deserve to die.
You
It's
deserve
really-
to die at Armageddon.
And so do your
If the
children.
governing body ran the Catholic Church of the Dark Ages, they would behave in the same way
if not
as the
worse.
Catholic Church.
Oh,
It's
wow.
slaughtering everybody.
Think
in their-
about that
They
for a
would
minute.
do it if they could. I really believe that they would kill the
That's something to think
apostates.
about.
They
Do you
would kill
remember,
everybody if they could.
A Watchtower study article back in it would have been the late 80s or early 90s, that I just remember a statement in the Watchtower study, and I remember going, where it said something like, of course, in the modern day, we cannot kill the
Yes,
apostates.
yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Even
Does it
though
literally
we would,
say
yes,
that? Yeah, it
even though
does.
Yes.
we would love to,
Yes.
we can't
John.
kill the apostates.
Seriously.
Did you find-
got to put it on
I'll
here.
try to find it. I'll try
Okay.
because I remember it too. So I know
Yeah,
it's
and
there.
I remember just going,
Oh my
wait,
goodness.
It's
Yeah.
like,
And I was
guys,
completely
we can't
in at that
kill
time.
them.
Yeah, we can't
Yeah.
kill
Like,
them anymore.
oh, darn.
Shucks.
Well, you know what really gets me too is, I didn't really understand completely.
yeah.
I was out for a long time before I had children, but I have young children. I have 2 boys, 5 and 7. And I discovered something when I had children. I discovered a deep and abiding rage over what had been done to my life as a child,
Yeah.
growing up Jehovah's Witness. The very idea that a loving God who is supposedly almighty and perfect and wonderful would kill those 2 beautiful, perfect human beings because I had sex 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Right.
What? That thing is
Yeah.
not worthy of worship at all. And there's
Yeah.
nobody who can convince me that the Jehovah's Witnesses are right about anything as long as that's what they teach.
That's what I tell people is that even if the witnesses were right about who God is, that God is not worthy of my worship.
Right.
And I won't do it.
And I don't want to be in paradise for 5 minutes with those people.
No,
Never mind
no,
forever.
not at all.
I mean, even when I was fully in and I'm just looking at the Hebrew scriptures, I'm like, that God is an angry,
Yeah.
jealous God. Killing people, destroying them
Yeah.
for just whatever.
And
Yeah, God
testing people.
clocks
He's like a
in.
middle school girl.
Yeah.
He's always testing people's loyalty. Do you really
That's
love
true,
me?
yeah.
Do you really love me?
Yeah.
Drive me crazy.
Even though you can read
That's
our
a good
hearts.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good point.
Good point.
Why did he have to test Abraham?
He didn't
Can you
have
read
to.
it?
He
Good point.
He was just a dick.
How did I never think of that?
Jesus,
Jesus
pulls one out.
runs the internet.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. So organization was set up in 1914, and then he uses my favorite word from the Watchtower when you say something about don't. How did we know that God always had an organization? Blah blah blah. The guy says there were always some of the anointed on earth. Evidently.
Using that word.
But it started in 1914.
Yeah. Well, anytime anyone who's
That's
a
like
witness,
triple think.
or anytime it's in the Watchtower, if you read the word evidently, what is either going to follow that word or what came before that word is completely unsubstantiated.
Right. They made it up.
yeah.
They made it up.
That's
No,
what the word
that's
evidently means in the Watchtower and when you hear it spoken by Jehovah's Witnesses. And then he says something that cracks me up. He has a Freudian slip. Because this is an older guy, right?
Yeah, he's an older guy.
He says, there's a good chance we gonna die.
No, we-
That's how he said it.
We gonna die.
We gonna die by the end of this system. Well, wait,
We's
what?
dead.
Wait.
Oh, wait a minute. No, we're not.
But we live in the last of the last days, according to the October
It's gonna
2019
come
article.
any-
What,
So
what
it's
do
like
you
right
mean?
around
There's-
the corner.
And he's telling
Just
you, and he
a
knows
shit.
you're only in your 40s, right? So
The generation that
we
will not
know
pass
there's a
away.
good
They've been
chance.
dead
we're
for
Oh,
gonna-
a
shit,
couple
they
years.
died.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah. So, but then he backs up. He backtracks. He goes, oh, there's a chance we're gonna die.
He did back it up.
Yeah, he backtracked on that. Well, that was the first interesting couple of minutes, but let's break, listen to the next few minutes, and then we'll talk about that.
See, I think, after 7 months of study, I have found so many double standards with the organization where they flip-flopped on the blood issue. You know, up until like 1950 something, everything with the blood was okay. You could do blood transfusions. Then later on, they said no to everything, and then now it's okay to have blood fractions. There's been flip-flopping on doctrine, and I know that everybody just says, well, there's a new light. My biggest problem with that is how in the world can they be told something one time and then later on change it? It's like they're teaching. It's like the Holy Spirit came down, said, okay, this is what I need to teach you guys about blood. Okay, they put it in play, and then 20 years later, oh wait, no, we're going to change that. So was the light that you were told in the beginning, was that wrong?
Well, the first of all, the society and any brother of good sense is going to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers. And sad to say, some brothers think that the Holy Spirit works on them differently. It tells them something different. That's not the case.
No, and
We have
that's
scripture.
actually been proven because, you know, in that Watchtower article where the governing body put in the Watchtower article, the governing body is neither inspired nor infallible.
What now?
The governing body is not inspired nor infallible.
Okay, well,
It says that in
Yep.
that
Oh, I know
Watchtower 2017. I think it's October. I don't know. I just woke up, so I can't recall everything right now. So if they're not inspired, how are they getting the information?
well, from the Bible mostly. And the Holy Spirit kind of leads them along. Like I said, they're not
So,
infallible.
and so if they're getting their information from the Bible, then why is there a prohibition on having a beard? There's nowhere in the Bible that says you can't
There's
have
no
that.
prohibition of having a beard.
Yeah, but the society puts rules on everybody. If you have a beard, you can't have privileges.
Well,
That's not cool.
I don't know about that now.
Yeah, and that's because Rutherford started that stuff back in the 20s. He actually made the decision that the organization would be beardless.
Okay. Well,
And
it
so
goes-
that's just to me, that's just something that a man made up.
well, now that part's true.
Yeah.
That's,
And it's like if you go into the 70s, I read Crisis of Conscience by Ray Franz. I read that.
was that you read it?
Crisis of Conscience by Raymond Franz. Raymond Franz was a governing body member.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was basically hunted. No, I wouldn't say hunted down. He was actually, there was a mission to get him out back in the 80s, and there was a Bethel purge in the 80s. Even the three brothers that got together to do the aid book, remember the blue aid book?
Mm-hmm.
Aid to Bible Understanding?
Yeah.
All three of those brothers that worked on that, they all got disfellowshipped. And the reason why is because, well, one, the mediator issue, Raymond Franz brought that up. He was like, hey guys, I think we got this wrong. And the governing body at the time did not like that. They didn't want to hear that. I found out too by reading that book that, you know, every rank and file witness believes the Holy Spirit comes down, gives the governing body information, and they pass it on to the congregations. However, they don't do it that way. They vote on changes. They vote on changes.
Well.
And I don't know how, I don't know how that's even biblical that they can just vote on things. They're not receiving the Holy Spirit. And the last thing, in the early 70s, the Watchtower organization put their nose in people's bedrooms, okay? And what I mean by that is in the early 70s, people were getting disfellowshipped for having oral sex and other forms of sexual pleasure with their mate. And then they felt bad about it because the organization says, no, you're not supposed to do that stuff. Well, people were getting disfellowshipped in the early 70s. Now, later on, like 78, 79, Watchtower came back and said, you know what, maybe it's not our place to be in the bedroom. And then they changed it to where they didn't talk about that stuff anymore. So, and they weren't disfellowshipping people anymore for that. But what about the people in the early 70s that were disfellowshipped?
Well,
And they had to lose their families, or people couldn't talk to them, and stuff like that. That makes people feel bad. And the shunning thing, with people, not allowed to have conversations with their mom and dad. My mom's not talking to me right now because she just feels like that I'm an apostate. And I'm sorry about that word, but Watchtower's using that word in a whole wrong meaning.
Okay. Well, okay.
So
if we want to sit down and talk about faults of society, we can talk all day long with them. I understand it. Okay, let me just put it this way. What if you're familiar with Hannah and Eli and all that situation went on. Now, what if you was back in? What would you have thought? About
Hannah.
Eli.
Oh, God. You're bringing out something I haven't thought about yet. All right, refresh my memory real quick.
Okay, remember Hannah was praying in there. She wanted a child so bad, and Eli thought she was drunk.
Oh, yeah.
And then what kind of sons did Eli have?
He had horrible
Good for
sons.
nothing men,
Yeah.
what's it called. They're going out, temple prostitutes, stuff like that. He couldn't even control his own family. He's pointing to some woman don't know anything about. He was the high priest. Now, what would you have thought if you seen that going on? Would you say this ain't Jehovah's organization?
Well, I would have looked at the individuals that were causing the problem.
And Jehovah did too. Now, my question come out of my mind when I read that, where were the older men? Why did they not take him out? A man like that caused problems? Well, see, that's what I've done research on. Nobody at that time had the authority. You look at, okay, you had him, you had Saul. Saul started out good. Look at how he turned. You look at Judas, handpicked by Jesus. Look at him. They all turned bad. So the thing of it is, Jehovah set up arrangement later to deal with that. Okay, now it's interesting. Well, see, Sarah, right? Was that Hannah? I have a hard time with names. Now you think about that. You have a child. You see how that man is. You see how his son is, but you send him to the temple anyway. You made a vow to God, and you do it, and let that man raise your child. But see, Jehovah used him, Samuel, to prophesy to Eli about him and his family will be taken out. And the thing of it is too, and it was only time when the kingship come in. The king had the authority to take the high priest out for, and then nobody did. Well, Samuel, who anointed the first king? Samuel did. He anointed the second king, David. Well, it's David's son Solomon who took Eli's descendants off the priesthood, and into his, just like the scripture said was going to happen. What that prophecy said was going to happen. See, so Jehovah makes arrangements. He allows stuff to go on. Now, going back to what you said about disfellowshipping. Basically, I've been disfellowshipped for 25 years over a lie. You probably notice I don't do anything there because I took away my privilege 25 years ago. Well, see, my ex-wife got an unscriptural divorce. They took away my privileges, but that ain't stopped me.
Okay, so as
No,
with the
he
other individuals, the elders and the CO, the whole new light, uninspired governing body bit comes up. Now, this guy's interesting, though, because Jimmy goes into what is now his memorized speech after all these people.
My presentation.
Your presentation, yes.
So
Beautifully delivered.
Oh my God.
Yes.
About how new light doesn't work, because that would mean that the Holy Spirit told you something that was wrong the first time and then told you something that was right the next time.
Girl, he lied to you.
Yeah, at which point the guy says, the society acknowledges we don't have all the answers. And then Jimmy says, well, yeah, it's because they say they're not inspired or infallible. So why are we listening to them?
It's like, see ya.
So I would like to point out, this may be seen by some as blowing my own horn, but damn it, I'm going to do it. I graduated from Clemson University with a 4.0. I have a master's degree. And that dude thinks he's smarter than me? For real. Why should I listen to him or the governing body?
Yeah.
Or, watch these people giving talks completely shit-faced.
You have that
That's
attitude
true.
because you got an education, dear one.
Yeah.
Come on.
But that's what education will do.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
the reason why.
It's unbelievable to me that dude thinks he's smarter than me.
Now, what bothers me the most about it is he acknowledges that they're not inspired, that they're not infallible, which means they're just dudes coming up with stuff.
Yeah.
But in line with what you're saying, if they're just 8 dudes coming up with stuff, I'm more educated than they are. I'm not going to listen to them.
come
Not
up
to
with better
mention
stuff.
more creative.
Even if you're a believer.
Think about the logic.
Yeah.
Even
about
if
the
you're a
logic
believer,
here.
let's say you're a believer, let's say you're a Christian, let's say you believe in the Bible and all that. Who would you listen to get information about the book that you believe to be God's inspired word? People with zero education in the original languages who know virtually nothing about the actual history of the nation of Israel, or people who are educated, can read and understand Greek and Hebrew, the archaeologists who have a deep understanding of the culture of the times as much as we can learn.
Especially
Who
since
are you
they have
gonna
a
listen to?
consensus.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're all having their own different opinion. I mean, there's a general consensus of what
You know
is
what, that's-
actually understood here.
That was the main thing that woke me up about the whole 607 and the 586.
Yeah.
Because I
Who you gonna trust?
Or 586, 587. I went really deep into that. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, all the archaeologists, there's archaeologist proof that shows it was 587. There was the stone tablet or something that was written on with the Babylonians or something.
Right.
And I'm looking at all that and I'm like, well, even if the Jehovah's Witnesses says 587 is wrong, there's a lot of proof for the 587. Where's your proof of the 607?
Exactly.
Nothing.
There's
Exactly.
nothing there.
Well, you know, along the same line, what did it for me? I talked about that Bible history class, but one of the things that we talked about was the Apocrypha and all of the other writings that maybe should have been in the Bible. Some of those texts that had better provenance
Yeah,
than
depending on the
what
time
got in
period you
there.
lived in, weren't they in there and some in and some
Yeah,
out? They just
some were
moved
in
out.
and out.
And the canon
Yeah.
was
It's
developed. It was basically a political ploy, and it was all for control. And when you start reading that history and you see that not only are the churches not inspired, the governing body's not inspired, neither were the original people who wrote the stuff. It's all crap.
If you look at it, it's like government. You have a few elite people that use a form of authority to control the masses. Religion is no different. Jehovah's Witnesses aren't any different. There's a few elite people who, well, God, is working through us, so you need to listen to us and do what we say. Control the masses. It's no different than politics.
I watched a YouTube video called The Caesar's Messiah. And in that video, it was actually really well put together. But they were talking about that the Romans would have been the ones responsible for writing the New Testament. Why? Because they could have control over the nations at that time. So, I mean, that video is like 2 hours long, but I was looking at it, I was like, well,
You haven't seen that one.
that actually could make some sense. I don't know if it's true. Hell, I don't know what's true these days, but that was pretty good.
Well,
the
and
truth.
that's kind of the point. Nobody knows for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But what is more likely?
What's more likely, that's true, but nobody knows for sure. And if God inspired the Bible, there should be a way for everybody to know for sure, because if he wanted you to know for sure, we should be able to know for sure, and there's no way to know. So what does that mean?
So when you hear a Jehovah's Witness say, well, Jehovah wants you to do this and Jehovah wants you to do that. Really?
And then they say, and then they
prove
quote
it.
from the Watchtower. It's like, why do we, and I wrote this down earlier, why do they need Watchtower to explain what the Bible says? If, like you and
You have
John
a Bible.
said, yeah.
it should
read
be
it.
in there.
Didn't
Straight.
he want us to understand what the hell he wants us to do? I mean, that's,
Well, I mean, what I keep coming back to is either he's a jerk or he's not real. I mean, that's what it really boils down to me. And I keep coming back to that, like, well,
Yeah.
I say a lot on the channel. I think that Jesus was all right. Jesus, God, was all right. Paul, don't like. Old Testament, So I really wonder why it was so different with Jesus versus everybody else. I'm like, was he trying to change gods on the nation? Because the God he talks about is very different from the Old Testament
Yeah.
God.
Oh,
yes.
And so much so that the Gnostics of the first century said that's because he's talking about the real God, not that faker from the Old Testament. They really thought that the Old Testament God was a rogue. I forget what they call him, a D something. It's a I forget the word for it, but he's a fallen god. Yahweh is the fallen god.
Wow.
And who created the world to try to convince people he's the real God. But he's not the real God. Jesus had the real God, and Jesus
just
came
scary.
to try to wake people up. It's a very Matrix
And yet the
style
Bible's
story.
one book, though. The New Testament and the Old Testament are still one book.
Yeah,
But not really.
not really.
In the beginning, they were a whole bunch of different books.
Yeah, and like you said, they had to argue and fight and vote with each other on which books actually got included, and
Definitely
the canon
sounds like
changed
Is
constantly.
that inspiration right there?
real?
Yeah.
I was
When you're arguing
that it?
about what
There it
books
is.
need to go in,
Yeah.
is that
Well, and it's all-
You
inspiration?
inspire me, Jimmy.
Some of the things that were included or not included were based on things like gender.
Yeah.
So if you look at the apocryphal books, which a lot of them feature women in roles that weren't subservient, roles where they had,
Really?
I don't know, names. A lot of the things that were not included in the Bible were not included for a reason.
Right.
So
I didn't know that.
yeah,
Yeah.
you should check out the Apocrypha if you haven't
I'm
read any of
curious.
it. It's
They're
very
interesting
interesting.
reads, yeah.
It is very interesting.
I got
Write it down.
popcorn.
Write it down for your research later.
Apocrypha. I can't spell that.
So,
APOCRYPHA.
Oh my God.
so
look
all
at
of
you.
that is
Okay.
said to say that the governing body certainly isn't inspired or infallible. If we can't prove anything is inspired or infallible, they sure aren't. And the guy does acknowledge that they're not. But whereas Jimmy asks him, so where are they getting their information from? And I love the dude's answer. He says, from the Bible. Mostly.
Hold on a second.
Okay,
Let me
wait.
Get some more information.
So, I have a question. How come the governing body get to vote and I don't?
Yeah.
That is not fair.
You can't vote. You're a woman and they're misogynist.
Hold on. We need,
Damn it, Bridget.
we need a head cover.
Get
Not a head covering.
And of course, then Jimmy brings
should've
up
brought
the
a tea towel.
beards because
Bring my tea towel.
that's one of Jimmy's favorite pet peeves is the beards. And the guy, again, to
too.
his credit, yeah, I know you too. The guy does acknowledge that that's a man-made rule.
He did.
He acknowledges it's man-made. Yeah, and then Jimmy gets into the 70s where Watchtower outlawed all kinds of sexual behavior because they were trying to police the bedroom. And that's a very good point. They outlawed it. And then a few years later, realized they shouldn't be trying to police people's
Maybe they should
bedrooms.
mind their own.
They realized they were getting
damn
sued is
business.
what
Yes.
happened.
Yeah.
There's a legal term, what's it called? It's not alienation of affection. Maybe it is.
Yeah, I think that is
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, where they were I think they were actually getting sued.
Oh, good.
Oh,
I did not know
good.
that.
And they reversed
Awesome.
that policy because of lawsuits.
But
Which
what
gives
they-
us hope for child sex abuse lawsuits.
But what they
Hell
didn't
yeah.
making
do,
change.
they
yeah.
didn't reinstate the people.
Yeah, they didn't
Who were
reinstate
already
it.
Not.
They just
Because
Because they're
disfellowshipped.
never
Yeah, that's my
wrong.
point.
Yeah, 'cause
well,
they're never
that
wrong.
was my
Yeah.
point.
Except
Whoops.
when they are.
If they got disfellowshipped in the early 70s and you changed your policy in the late 70s, go ahead and reinstate everybody.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that.
That
Yeah.
makes
Right.
too
They
much
just-
sense.
They
Jimmy.
left
Right.
them all be
Because
You're
that would
starting to
admit
think
that they made a mistake.
objectively, you need to stop that critical.
Well, I mean,
I know,
what they'll
right?
say is, well, their heart condition wasn't right anyway. So they
Yeah,
still need
that's
to be
true.
There's always a
disfellowshipped.
cop out
wait.
for Watchtower.
Of course there is.
But if you're not inspired,
How the hell
do
do
you
you
know
know?
what their heart condition
Right.
is? All right.
Well, there's a
Okay.
couple of things that I wanted to talk
Yeah, sure.
about in this too. In one thing, he starts talking about this obscure Bible story, which I don't even know who these people were talking about. He's talking about, like, he knows more about dead people from 2,000 years ago than he does about his own family. I mean, I don't understand how this dude could be disfellowshipped for years and not see the ridiculous. I mean, he even admits that he was
He doesn't have a
disfellowshipped
cell
over
phone.
a lie.
That's
He doesn't have a cell phone, so he's not. He doesn't have access. I guess he doesn't have access. Well, he has access to technology, but he just doesn't use it.
Well, right, but it's not even about, you don't even have to have any outside influence to think about that. If that guy said, I got disfellowship because of a lie,
Why'd you
how
go
does
back?
that not click with him?
Yeah.
If the elders in the judicial
Fear.
committees were inspired by God and getting messages from Jehovah about what his heart condition was and whether or not he really did whatever, then they should know that it was a lie.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
if he knows that he was disfellowshipped because of a lie, and I don't know this guy, I don't know what his situation was, he's belying his own beliefs
Yeah, that's
right
true.
there.
It's fear.
Also, he says stuff about people who went bad, guys who went bad or whatever, and he mentions Judas. Okay, but does anybody realize that if there were no Judas, there would be no Christianity?
That's true. Nobody turned him in.
Somebody had to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
There's always a good versus evil.
Holy
Poor
shit.
Judas.
Always.
Created Christianity.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay, mine. Wow.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
Shamanio.
Well, now, and that's a really good point.
Yeah.
But he goes into the Eli and Hannah thing. And I think the point he's trying to get at is Eli made a mistake with thinking Hannah was drunk. And then look at Eli's kids, because Eli's kids were
losers.
doing all this stuff. They were, well,
Can't even control his own family.
can't even control his own family. And
Seem like cool kids.
but
to
now
me,
this
man.
this is the part that gets to me. He compares the governing body to Eli, because he says we could talk about the faults of the society all day long. Well, you just
let's
made
do
a
it.
case.
That's what I should have said.
I've got popcorn.
Really? You want to talk about that?
Yeah.
I got time.
But-
Let's talk about the faults of the society.
Then
Oh, my
he
God.
says, he's trying to use that as an example. Like, well, do you know why nothing happened to them? And Jimmy's playing along. Okay, why did that happen? And the guy says, because nobody had the authority to do anything about it, which immediately jumps in my head. God did. And think
Yeah.
about it.
You know
The
one
same
thing.
God. You remember the guy who touched the ark to steady
Yeah.
it when it rocked, and God killed him right there?
Right.
And what about Nabal? Because the Bible says God struck Nabal. What about Herod? Because the Bible says God struck Herod. What about Korah, Dathan, Abiram, the ground opening up and swallowing people? You know, if God's got a problem with somebody, the Old Testament shows he's got no problem
what
killing
about
that
the
guy.
42 kids that called, was it Elijah?
Yeah,
the
right, go up bald head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have all of these situations in the Bible where God clearly takes matters into his own hands, but this guy's trying to say that nobody had the authority to stop Eli. When in fact, Eli is given a prophecy by Samuel when Samuel's little, saying that Eli is going to die for everything he's done. And guess what? God kills him. He kills his sons in battle, and then Eli hears about it, falls over, breaks his neck, and dies.
Well, does that mean that he had a choice in anything then, if it was predestined?
That's a good. Well, I think the Samuel's prophecy was supposed to be because Eli had done all this stuff, God was going to kill him. And I used to love.
But had he done this stuff yet?
Yeah, he
Oh,
had already
okay.
done these things.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot. It's been a long time since I've been
I used
really
to
interested in.
love the 1984 New World Translation because the way it said that God was going to kill Eli's sons, it said that he was pleased to put them to death. And I used to think that was so humorous. But they changed it so it doesn't sound like God's so giddy about it in the 2013.
But he
Silver Sword.
is. That's
He
another
is,
problem
yeah.
I have with the witnesses because they are so gleeful about slaughtering, like mass genocide.
Yeah.
7 billion people?
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's not
Around
just
8 billion now.
it's not just Armageddon because Armageddon wasn't the first time, right? So it happened at the flood, supposedly.
Right.
And that was supposed to clear everything up. And then here we are again. It's going to happen again. And then we're going to have like the 1,000-year reign or whatever. And then he's going to kill the people that don't believe after that point. So it's like everything's a setup for the next mass genocide.
Kill,
Who is
kill,
this
kill.
guy?
Come
and
on.
why should we worship
Get
him?
this over with.
Somebody made a good point about that in a comment. He said, God keeps killing large numbers of people and it's not solving the problem.
Right.
So what does that say about God? His methodology isn't very effective because people keep coming back and doing
damn it,
the
I gotta
same.
kill
It's
him
like
again.
a little kid with an ant farm who's killing him with a magnifying glass.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got all that, but then it gets worse.
Oh boy.
So let's pause and we'll play the next clip where the guy gets honest about himself and what he thinks.
You know, so don't let me comment much because I'll stand up to them. But the thing is, I read an article.
So in my question to that, who put that rule on you? Who put that rule there?
Who put what?
Who made that rule?
I have no idea. Like I said, see the difference between me and that body up there. If I'm going to say something, I need proof.
I do too.
Well, see, they had no proof over it because I proved it was wrong. Well, no, I back up. I showed them how to prove it wrong, but they didn't do it. They're not really interested, I don't think. When they hold a grudge, they hold a grudge.
And that's not cool. I mean, that's not that. I mean, in my opinion, for a body of elders or somebody to hold a grudge, that's not what Jesus said to do.
No. Well,
Jesus said to show love to everybody, no matter what.
but the thing of it is, see, I don't know what you know about Jehovah cleaned house over one time before. We had some problems over there, and it was in the servant body. And 3 elders, 2 ministerial servants got deleted. See, Jehovah sees that's going on. Now, the thing of it is, there's problems over there now. And the thing of it is, either Jehovah's going to clear it out, or at Armageddon, he's going to clear it out. In other words, some of the brothers ain't going to make it through Armageddon. But it's also pointed out a thing, too, that it is on the rest of the elders. I don't know if you read this point here recently, and it has come across assembly, that the elders have to be compassionate. If an elder is not compassionate, he has to learn it. If he don't learn compassion, he needs to be deleted.
Yeah.
So it's on the body of elders to clean itself out occasionally. Now, if they do it or not, that's on them. Now, going back to disfellowshipping, when I first come to the truth, I read an article about a brother who'd been disfellowshipped for 25 years. Now, question comes up. All them different elders in there went and talked to him or whatever. All them different circuit overseers come in. And finally, 25 years later, a circuit overseer comes looking for records. You had no grounds to disfellowship this man. Well, they never talked to him. He come back in the truth. And he was serving as elder at that time.
Yeah.
So
I guess the problem I have with that is, though, for 25 years, his family shunned him. He wasn't able to talk to nobody.
Well,
I don't think it's right to break up families. I don't think it's right for a governing body to put the stipulation on people to say, hey, since you no longer agree with what we believe in, we're going to make sure the rest of your family doesn't talk to you anymore. It has nothing to do with you. And they try to say they don't do that, but that's not what the rank and file actually do. My mom is shunning me right now. And I'm not disfellowshipped. I'm not disassociated. I have none of that. She has no governing body reason, or whatever you want to call it, to not talk to me.
well, now a lot of that is personal decision. You know.
Well, in her mind, it's because, well, we are instructed by Jehovah to not meet with one, or not say a greeting to somebody. And that's not wrong. I mean, if you look at the disfellowshipping practice, in 1947 there was a Watchtower or Wake article that they did, and they railed against the Catholics because the article title was, "Are you excommunicated?" And in that article, the Watchtower Society said that the Catholics do the excommunication, and it has its root in paganism. They also called it a weapon. It was a weapon that they were using to keep people in. All right, so Watchtower blasted them in 1947, but in 1952, Watchtower turned around and started doing the same thing. And those are the little things that I've noticed, to where Watchtower says one thing, and then later on, they change their tune and do the same thing that the Catholics are doing.
Well, but hadn't they found apostates in the organization in the past? I'm talking about in the governing body and up in that.
Oh, well, the most famous one is Ray Franz. I don't know of anybody else.
I think through the years they found it. But the thing is, it goes back, well, first of all, I know what the Bible says about disfellowship, and I understand what it says, and that is a Bible principle.
Actually,
now,
yeah,
your
we can talk about that later.
your situation, I don't know a thing about you. Some of the things you say concern me a little bit. But the thing of it is, the society said as long as you are not disfellowshipped, or if you have not, what do they call that?
Disassociated.
Disassociated. You're still our brother. That's
what yeah. And
I'm going to view you as such until then,
But see, that's the thing. You're going to view me as such until then. So I'm going to, if I change my mind about something, then I'm no longer a brother. And as a person, I am looked at as being dead.
No.
How is that? Yes.
No.
The witnesses believe that. My mom believes that. But there's a lot of witnesses out there that if their loved one gets disfellowshipped or whatever, they view them as dead.
What is disfellowshipping?
disfellowshipping is kicking someone out of the organization.
Disfellowshipping is a form of discipline.
Who put that form of discipline in place?
The Bible.
Why did they wait till 1952 to put it in place?
I don't know that.
Yeah, and if you look,
you keep looking back on things like that.
I do, because you have to look at the history of things. Because if you don't look at the history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Well, see, the thing of it is, I know what the society says on disfellowshipping. I know what the Bible says on it, and they're in harmony with each other. The thing is, what disfellowshipping is a form of discipline, because it says when the man repents of his sins and stuff like that, welcome him back as a brother. Okay, the thing, and another thing too, okay, there's 3 reasons for disfellowshipping. What are the 3 reasons?
Go ahead.
Discipline.
I'm too tired. I just woke
Discipline.
up. So, okay.
Keeping Jehovah's name from being reproached and keeping the congregation clean. If you well, I've seen it happen before. A bunch of young ones get together, start drinking and stuff like that. What happens? Next thing you know, others get in with them. It's like a sickness. It spreads among them. And that's, if they're not repentant, they're going to keep doing it. They got to take them out, because they're setting a bad situation on the rest of the congregation. The young ones setting a bad example. So that's why it's done. Like I said, one of the ones disfellowship back in says he's having sexual relations with what, father's wife or something like that.
Who was?
It was Book of Acts, I think. It had to do with disfellowshipping. I mean, that is a spiritual sickness, sir. You know what the Bible says about fornication and adultery? It's very clear. Well, he was going to do it. Well, he was doing it, and he's going to keep doing it. See, he wasn't repentant and wanted to turn around. See, that's the difference. A man, if he's repentant, don't have to be disfellowshipped. But a man who's not repentant going to do.
But the thing is, if somebody's disfellowship, everybody's love for said brother is not there anymore.
That is not true. You still love that person. You just hate the bad they've done.
But you can't talk to them. You can't show them any love. You can't communicate with them.
Well, see, that goes back to discipline. Just like
that's it.
You give your child a timeout. Same thing.
But the explanation that most rank and file witnesses will give you is the reason we're disfellowshipping you and the reason we're not talking to you is so that you will miss the association with the brothers and come back. Has nothing to do with that person becoming repentant. I can fake repentance. I could do that just so that I could get back in the organization so people will talk to me and I can have my family relations again.
Well, see, that's not being truly repentant if that's the only reason you're doing it.
Well, but see, the thing is most people, and I'll be honest with you, I have talked to thousands of people here lately that have association with Jehovah's Witnesses or who have had association. There's a lot of people out there that are disfellowshipped, and they are not allowed to talk to their grandkids if they're an older person. They can't. There's people that haven't even seen their grandkids because they don't even know them, because the kids are shunning the parents or the parents are shunning the kids. That's not loving. I'm sorry. I don't agree with the disfellowshipping. I mean, if you're going to say, if you did something wrong, you know what? Hey, brother, you did something wrong. Let's fix that, change it up, and give that person some guidance there. You don't have to make an announcement, publicly announce this person is no longer a Jehovah's Witness.
Well,
and the other thing.
So you're missing the whole point, though. If they're repentant, they do. We ain't talking about repentant people. We're talking about unrepentant.
I know what you're saying about
I know what I'm doing wrong, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Right.
Like my ex-wife turned apostate. She's going out sleeping with all kinds of different men. You think that's a good thing for a Christian to be doing?
Oh, no.
She finally committed suicide.
If you're going to do that, then yeah, I mean.
And she turned my kids against the truth.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's just. I had a train of thought. Oh God, what was I going to say? Disfellowshipping. Oh man, I had a really good point. It's conditional. I can't think. I just lost my train of thought. But I just don't agree with the fact that they use the shunning and the disfellowshipping as a way to keep people in line.
Okay.
That's how I look at it.
Well,
and I mean, if you look at the scriptures, I mean, if disfellowshipping was scriptural, Why wasn't it put in place in 1919 when Jesus supposedly cleansed the organization? You know, why
I can't answer all that
why did
question,
they? And see, that's the thing. I have tons of questions, and nobody can answer them.
Well,
Nobody can answer them.
Well, some have argued the light gets brighter. We don't understand everything.
Yeah, that phrase right there, I'm just having a hard time with that because, you know, now you got the overlapping generations, which makes no daggone sense.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, the difference between me and you is if I thought this wasn't the truth, I'd be out the door.
Well, that's where I'm kind of at right now.
Yep.
That's why, because
But I know it's the truth. Like Jesus said, you know, see, people didn't understand what Jesus said. He said, you're going to have to eat my flesh and drink my blood. People got offended and left. He turned to Peter and said, you want to go with him? Peter, smart enough. Where else is there to go?
no, he said, whom shall we go to?
Do what?
He didn't say, where should we go? He said, whom shall we go to?
Well,
And
whatever he
that's,
said.
and that's when Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Anyone that comes through me, anyone that goes through me, or the only way to get to the Father is come through me. But see, the governing body makes it sound like you have to do everything that they say, no matter if they make a decision that doesn't make sense in a human standpoint, or if we feel like, what are they doing? We're just supposed to blindly follow along and believe whatever they say.
I've never seen that. The thing of it is, Jehovah give us a conscience. Each one's a conscience.
Yeah.
Nobody has a right to go against your conscience, so long as it's a Bible-trained conscience. Now, going back to things like beards and stuff like that, you know, you look at things, not everybody has to wear a tie, but the congregations, what they trying to do, they trying to keep things looking, you know, in that area. Now, me personally, when you go by a church, you see people with shorts and all going into church, beards, tattoos and stuff like that. To me, it's not that big a deal. Just, they tell us to do it and keep it. Okay, I'll give you an example. There's some brothers over in the congregation used to love to hunt and stuff like that. And they got, you know, some of the friends get upset because they had guns. Well, instead of getting all bent out of shape, they moved out to South Dakota somewhere out there. You know, got them a farm out there where they can hunt. I think they guide and stuff like that. And plus, they're being used in the congregation out there.
Yeah,
So-
but that doesn't show a united brotherhood. That just shows factions. You know, one group will allow this, another group will allow this. Go over to England, it's okay to have a beard and be an elder. But now, just the example that you just gave, if it was a united brotherhood, those brothers should have had no problem with the other brothers hunting. None. It's none of their
Seems like it,
business.
yeah. Well, see, the thing is, see, I grew up in the 60s. You know, long hair, beards, and all that stuff.
Hippies, yeah.
And, you know, you don't trust anybody over 30. We've seen the corruption, stuff like that. And I've sort of still that mentality. So to me, long hair and the beard on a man don't bother me in the least.
This guy tells me, this guy plus the elders plus circuit overseer, the Watchtower talks all the time about how unified everybody is in thought. That is a lie.
Yes.
None of the people you have talked to so far have the same opinion
No, they don't.
on almost anything. Well, he covered a lot of stuff in that segment, but a lot of things that he said, he just directly disagrees with the governing body and with what the Watchtower says. There's some things you state that he says he's never heard of, but it's right in the Watchtower. You know, they are not the unified people they claim to be.
No.
I mean, this is the seventh person at
all
my
about
house
image.
now. The seventh one. And there is no unified message between just these seven, minus the one circuit overseer. 6 of them are from one congregation.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this guy flat out admits that they're wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just flat out admitting over and over and over again that they've done all these things wrong, but they're still the truth.
I love the
Right.
part where you said, you know, where did that come from? I have no idea.
I have,
Yeah.
and he said
Who
that
made that
multiple
several times.
times. I have no idea.
And don't care either.
Yeah, he really doesn't.
Let me just keep telling you what the society has told me, so you need to listen to it.
Yeah.
Regardless. And why do you keep going all the way back to the, you know, back in history on
Oh, you know,
But then he
history.
goes back to like Bible times.
Yeah, I'm going back to 1952 and 1919. His ass is going back 4,000 years.
And what's his name? And
Jimmy.
Eli, like he knows them. Like they sit down at dinner together. These people that like may or may not have lived 2,000 years ago, like we care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. You're only going to 1919. He's going all the way back to Moses. Like, oh,
I
that's
should've heard
true.
You know
Jimmy.
what?
Do you believe what the Bible says?
The next person that comes to my house and,
And
they
there
start,
will be more.
I'm gonna be like,
Bust they
that
asses.
stuff you're talking about, that's old light.
Old light.
I'm gonna tell them that's old light.
Old
Now,
light.
old light.
Now
Old
he
light.
starts in this clip. He starts talking about how they, meaning the elders, I assume, don't let me comment much
Yeah.
because I stand up to them. Okay, first of all, that should be a clue to you, brother, that if they don't want to listen to you, if they're trying to shut you down, that there's a reason for that.
Yep.
They're
Stay
supposed
up
to be
yourself.
the ordained
And that's a
spiritual
problem.
leaders.
Yes,
Maybe you're in the
right.
wrong religion.
Are you respecting headship?
Yeah. And then he says, when they hold a grudge, they hold a grudge. To which Jimmy's like, but that's not Christ-like. And the
Christian
guy
love right
agrees. He agrees. So you're staying
Oh,
in
it's
an
not?
organization.
Oh, never mind.
You stay in the organization that you know is not letting you speak because they don't like dissension, that you know they hold grudges
You
for.
can't defend
and,
yourself.
And you acknowledge that that's not
You have
Christ-like.
no idea where it came from.
But you're okay with being there. Because
know it's the truth.
the truth.
Yeah.
But that
That
doesn't
sounds
define
very
truth.
factual.
It's actually.
Yeah, I mean,
Wait,
he had,
hold on.
there's so many times.
Satisfaction.
There's so many times to this particular clip where he's like, I don't know.
So
But then
what the hell do you know?
he so is bought into that. But I know this is the truth.
Right.
How?
Based on
How?
what?
Like we need like that Willy Wonka, you know.
It's just I don't get the mentality of these folks. And I know it's the indoctrination.
It is.
It's the fear, the obligation,
Fear.
the guilt. It's
Yeah.
all that
It's
stuff.
fear.
And Watchtower has succeeded in basically blinding the minds
Yeah.
of the unbelievers.
And well, you
Yeah.
got to think about it. It's got to be hard to question something when, from your youth up, or from the time of your indoctrination, you have been scared into thinking that to dissent in any kind of way openly is to put yourself in line to be destroyed by Jehovah at Armageddon,
Yeah.
or to lose His favor.
Yeah.
And they claim this from no authority.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the whole basis
That
for
is
remaining
abuse.
in the organization is people are afraid
Yeah.
they're going to die if they're not there.
Right. Or
That's
they're going
what
to lose
we
their
on
family.
the
Or they're
outside
gonna lose their
world would
family.
call
Or they're going to lose their
abuse,
family and die.
Yeah.
fear mongering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into that point too because they talk about that. First, he talks about how Jehovah cleaned the congregation that Jimmy used to be in and got rid of a bunch of elders and servants. And then he says some of the brothers ain't going to make it through Armageddon.
I thought that was funny.
And then
How does he know?
He's judging the brothers in the congregation.
Yep, he
There's
is.
some of them ain't gonna make it.
judge not.
Well, what is this?
Yeah,
I mean,
let's-
you're not going to
you
make
can
it.
judge-
They're not going to make it. Who is going to
Yeah,
make
who's
it?
going to
I
make
guess
it?
he is.
Well, he's convinced.
You're out.
He is gonna be all
You're
right.
out.
And then, the part that irritated me: if an elder if an elder don't learn compassion, he's deleted. If the body don't do it, that's on them. So you're relying on a system
That's
where
such a
this
scholarly
person,
view.
well, yeah, but that aside, you're relying on a system where the guy is supposedly required to have compassion. Bullshit.
Right.
And if he doesn't have compassion, the body is supposed to remove him. But if they don't, it's on them. Well, but if they don't, they're allowing somebody to hurt other people, which, as we all know from all the court cases of all the elders who have hurt all the children, that they
That's
often
okay.
don't remove them.
Having been one of those children, I can attest to the fact that they are not compassionate. They do not protect victims
Yeah.
at all. In fact, at the age of 7, I was blamed for what happened to me.
Wow.
I am still blamed by members of my family for what happened to me for various reasons. And this whole idea that the elders are right even when they're wrong, when you can acknowledge that they are not compassionate and that they make mistakes, and if they're not deleted for whatever, then it's on the body. No, it isn't. It's on all their victims.
Yes.
There are so many
Yeah.
YouTube videos out there with people's personal experiences
I didn't know that.
that's talking about that. And if you look at, we have Watchtower on our Facebook group, and there's so many stories that are shared on that page. And you will see perfectly that these elders do not have compassion.
At all.
They don't. When you read these stories, you're just like, oh my God, that is horrible.
Yeah.
And so there is no compassion in that organization. If there was compassion in that organization, people wouldn't be shunned.
Yeah, that's true.
The closest thing you get to compassion is if you are actually a man. Because if you're a woman, forget it.
Yeah.
It's
And
ridiculous.
Forget
I can't
it.
tell you how many people I've heard from, how many women I've heard from. Because I put a call out on Twitter. This was a while back too, for a different video I made. If you had any experiences with the elders involving your husband being abusive or anything like that, just let me know. How did it go? Every single response, they always blamed her.
Did
the
elders
elders
even
always
kinda
blamed her.
say, well, the man can get away with it, or
Yeah.
but the woman cannot, or she's not allowed the access to the information.
Yes.
She's counseled to
Yes.
be more submissive is what happens. Counsel her on being a submissive wife and studying more. And
It's just not
It
equality.
does say
winning him
that.
over without a word, I believe is what they call it.
But what Deasis is referring to is true. It says that if a brother admits to adultery, if he admits to it to the elders will not tell his wife.
Yep.
He has to tell her. And if
Yeah,
she comes
that's
to
it.
them
Yeah,
and
you
says,
got it.
I think my husband is cheating on me,
Go on.
they still won't tell
Yeah.
her. They'll tell her, go
Even
talk
if
to your
they
husband.
know.
They
What about
won't.
doing the
so
right
they
thing?
could be causing so much harm. What if he's got some disease
Right.
from his behavior?
What if he's
People's
a
lives
serial
are
killer?
involved.
What if anything?
I mean, honestly, no,
There's-
that's messed up.
Yeah.
It's mess. And we were just having this conversation earlier because you told me a story about somebody you knew that was doing wrong to his girlfriend. And when he finally refused to tell her, you went and told her, look, this guy's not being right and you need to know it. You, the worldly apostate with that damn beard, you can do the right thing you are morally moved to do the right thing when someone's in line to get hurt. But
Thank
the
you.
shepherds of God cannot tell someone who is getting hurt, whether she knows it or not.
That's a good point. That's a
They
good point,
will
Joe.
not tell her so that she can protect herself.
But this is the thing about ethics. Jehovah's Witnesses talk a real good game about being moral people and integrity and all this stuff, but it's because they have alternative definitions for all those words. Jehovah's
Yeah.
Witnesses are actually amoral.
Yeah.
They do not have ethics. That's why when a lot of young people get out, they go buck wild.
Yeah.
And it's just like anything goes because I'm in the world now. And they don't have a
I'm
moral
going to
compass.
die anyways.
Yeah, they really
Right.
don't.
They have no, and I know from experience,
the truth.
they have no idea. And they're often shocked when they find worldly people that are like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah,
Like,
that happened to me
what
when I
is-
was just fellowship.
Totally.
I went crazy. I flew out the damn window.
Yeah.
yeah,
Just went ballistic.
me too.
Didn't know how to act.
I was
Never dealt with real world stuff.
I was fortunate, just real quick, I was
Gotcha.
fortunate in that regard, in that I was already very established, like in my job. I have an established family. I wasn't in the position to go nuts.
Right.
And nor did I have the desire to, because I was 37 years old when I woke up and I was
good.
past all that. And no, don't need, no, I'm good. I'm happy. Life is fine. So, but yeah, I really feel for the people who go crazy because they don't know what else to do. And that, like you said, they were never given a moral compass.
It's
I'm
like
just
I said
really
in my
glad that
video,
the internet didn't
no
exist
executive
back
functions.
Oh, well.
Yeah, the majority
Yeah,
of
that's
I've
true.
never been trained
That
to
is
use it.
true. That
the
is true.
majority of the folks that leave the organization that grew up in it, when they do get out, they do go crazy.
Bad things
Yeah.
happen.
I mean,
Bad decisions are made.
Yeah,
A
because
lot of
they-
them kill themselves too because
That's
they
true.
feel like they're condemned because they're going crazy and they don't know how to handle
Right.
it because they've never been taught.
yeah, I mean, there's so many different things between their emotion, trying to handle their emotions or trying to figure out how life works outside of Watchtower. It's sad to see so many people broken when they go
Yeah.
out of this organization, and that's what pisses me off because there's no reason that an organization should be responsible for destroying as many lives as they have and are continuing to do.
Right.
And the reason we do our activism
Yeah.
is basically we want to keep this from happening to future generations.
Yep.
So
because
that's
if you
why
look
we
at
do.
it, if you look at it, not only have they deprived these people of their families and their friends, and if they were born in, everybody they've ever known, right? They've also poisoned them against anyone who can provide them help, so that they're a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, that's true.
They come out,
Wow.
education is bad. psychology is bad.
Yeah.
Breathing
Certain
is
medical
bad.
treatments bad. Everything about you is bad now because you've been kicked out of the witnesses. So there's no help. There's no life skills. There's no nothing. All you have, the option you have is to go crazy because you're going to die anyway.
You know what they're doing?
That's a good point.
They're setting up future martyrs.
Boom. You're absolutely right.
That's what they're doing. To keep their theology or whatever the hell you want to call it, to keep it going.
Because
Well,
so-and-so
they're
left the truth and look
conditioned-
what happened to them.
They're conditioned for failure because when they leave, if they have any, like if they're disfellowshipped and they're still mentally in, they still mentally think it's the truth, inevitably their life is going to go crazy off the rails for all the
Right.
reason you said. And where's the only place they have to go? They can only go back.
Right.
That's all they can do.
Well, that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
You know, in 2010.
That's real Watchtower love right there.
I was going through some personal crap, didn't know which way to turn. And then I thought, oh my goodness, the reason all this crap's happening to me is because I've left Jehovah. Or I
Right.
left
The truth.
the organization.
Right.
So, and I was like, and I was just physically out. Yeah, physically out, mentally in, POMI. And I knew that the only thing that I could do at that time was to call up the Kingdom Hall and say, hey, I need a Bible study.
Well, you see the difference between me and you, Jimmy.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's all I knew because the indoctrination was just so deep. And, you know, at this year, last time this year, or did I say that right?
This time last year.
This time last year.
This time last year.
Same thing.
Fully in. I'm fully in.
Wow.
Fully in. So it's such a shock.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, same thing, same here. I think we started waking up around the same time.
I think so.
Were you guys in the same congregation?
We're new.
We weren't.
No.
No, we weren't. Yeah.
No, he found me and then linked us all up.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah,
I am the organizer of this.
That's what he did. He brought us together.
So with that,
And I want to bring
Said-
everybody together.
yeah, and that
He
you
means
do a good
that.
job of
Yeah.
that,
He
Jimmy. Watching
seriously
Watchtower.
means that.
He's working hard.
Watching Watchtower is over 1,000 members now as of the filming of this video.
Yeah,
so
we're
doing
Jimmy's
good.
working hard on that. So
Yeah.
much appreciated.
Thanks, guys.
Our spokesman. What is it? Public
Public relations.
Yeah,
Public
public relations.
relations,
There you go. So the guy gets into kind of what you were talking about. The thing that kept you in or coming back, your family, right? You got to get your family back. Got to get your family back. And you explain that to him, that the Watchtower's breaking up families by telling them that they can have nothing to do with the people who are disfellowship. They're treated like they're dead.
Yeah.
And then the guy says that's a personal decision.
The
But
hell
no,
it
it's
is.
not.
It's-
Because it says in
No,
the
the hell
Shepherd
it's
the
not.
Flock of God book that if you associate with disfellowship people unnecessarily,
That's right.
you will be disfellowshipped.
That's
The
right.
only exception.
That's right.
There is an exception for family members. A family member can associate with their family member and not be disfellowshipped, but they will lose all privileges in the congregation and they will be looked at as non-spiritual
Yep.
people.
At the very least, marked.
So
They-
do you know where that came from? This is a fascinating tidbit. This was because of Ray Franz. Because that was the only thing they could get him on, was associating with a disfellowship person. So they caught him having lunch with someone who was disfellowship, and that's when they added that rule.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was a way to trump up a charge
heard that before.
against
I think I've
Ray
heard that.
Franz.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I mean,
Yeah.
it makes
he did-
sense.
Yeah.
I haven't read the book yet.
sense.
You
haven't read Christ?
No, I haven't read it. No.
Out of all the books you've
I haven't
read,
read it
For
either.
real though?
seriously?
I've read, when I was exiting, I didn't read or watch apostate stuff. I read Bible scholars. That's
Gotcha.
what led
Well,
me down the
gotcha.
road I went
Okay,
down.
Gotcha.
I can
So,
see that because
same here.
I got
That makes sense.
disfellowshipped in 97 or 98, and I didn't actually start. I mean, I read Crisis of Conscience early on, but I didn't start really reading and watching videos and stuff until probably 2 years ago. And
Yeah,
I've been
I mean,
out
same
over
here.
20-something.
I got
22 years.
disfellowshipped in 2014, and I didn't wake up until like around the time you did, about a year ago.
Yeah.
I'm fresh into this. I mean, my first video is what, a year old now, if that.
Yeah.
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 I realized that they were full of it, but the cultishness is what has struck me and the reason I started making videos.
Yeah.
The longer I'm out, the more cultier they are.
Yeah.
Yes, me too.
The longer
It's
I'm
like,
out, the more
what?
pissed
Part of
off
that is
I am.
because as you wake up, you recognize the cultiness.
Right.
And part of that is because they are getting weirder
They
by
are
the
getting
day.
way
That
weirder.
You
is
start to
very true.
recognize the abuse. It's kind of like an abuser. It's like
Yeah.
getting out of an abusive relationship.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
It is.
honestly.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it's like to me.
I agree. Okay, so you go through the Ray France thing, and the guy says that disfellowshipping is a Bible principle. No, it's not. No, it isn't. And
That does not
It's,
appear in
it's
the
really
Bible.
taken out of context, honestly.
it's not just taken
It's
out
taken
of
way
context.
out of
It's
context.
just not
Read
there.
it.
Right. It's not there.
Away from the lens of Watchtower.
There
Just
was
go
a guy,
read it.
and he talks about this, and Bridget was cracking up during when we were listening to it.
I was
How did he
laughing
word it?
so hard.
About the guy who sleeps with his father's wife. And that's how the Bible words it, his father's wife. So it must be his stepmother or something
Right,
like
yeah.
that. It doesn't say his mother, it's his father's wife. Which
not
under,
TMI.
Here's the thing. First of all, under Mosaic law, that's forbidden. That's punishable by death
Right.
under Mosaic law. So, and in 1 Corinthians 5, he's like, you can't let that guy stay in the congregation, get him out. But here's the difference. When you read what Paul actually says, he says that you should not mix in company with anyone called a brother who does all of these things. Now, it makes perfect sense to me if you are a congregation or a club, a social club, and you have rules and someone refuses to follow the rules, that they cannot remain a good standing member of the club. That's fine. I get it.
Cool.
No problems here.
Yeah.
All the groups, that we take part in, any activities we do. If I take my kids to Safari Nation to play on the
Right.
indoor playground, there are rules. And if you don't follow it, you got to leave.
Right.
Don't have a problem with that.
But they're not going to tell you can never speak to them again.
They're not going to tell you can never speak to them again. And especially once they walk out the door, the rules no longer apply. So when your family member says, you know what, I don't believe this anymore, I'm going to leave now, they no longer call themselves one of Jehovah's Witnesses. What Paul wrote no longer applies.
Yep.
They are no longer
Wow.
in the congregation. They are not
Wow.
a problem for the congregation.
Wow. Drops mic.
They have no effect on the
Damn,
congregation anymore.
Well,
I
that's
didn't
one of the
even know that.
that's one of
Yes.
the points I made
I never
when-
thought about it.
in my own judicial committee because I hadn't been to a meeting in almost a year and a half, and they're like, "Oh, we're keeping the congregation clean." I was like, "How? I'm not
How?
even there.
That's
I haven't
the
been
point.
there."
Paul's
No, I
whole
mean,
point
seriously, wow.
was keep the congregation clean. Well, once the guy says, "Okay, I'm out," it's clean.
Yeah.
And then
Bye.
Problem solved.
And
Bye,
then the whole
Felipe.
you can't speak to disfellowship persons, first of all, is nowhere in what Paul wrote.
Nope.
That's not in there at all. That comes up in First
That's
John.
true.
In First John. And you know who he's talking about? He's talking about the Antichrist. The only people you can't talk to are the Antichrist. But he doesn't even say you can't talk to them. He says, do not say a greeting to them. And what he is talking about is not accepting them into, and he says that, do not take them into your homes or say a greeting to them. Where did the first century Christians meet because they didn't have churches?
In homes.
In people's homes. Most scholars say what that means is you don't allow someone who doesn't accept Jesus having come in the flesh to teach in the congregation in your house. He's not talking about someone, you don't believe in Jesus? I can't talk to you. Because guess what? If that was true, you couldn't go out in service.
Right.
You couldn't talk to anybody.
Oh gosh, that would be great.
Wow. This is, no,
You'd have
John,
to go door
you've
to door.
definitely given this some thought.
You'd have to go door to door.
More than I did.
Do you believe in Jesus? No, I'm a Muslim. Oh, sorry, gotta go. Can't
Yeah,
talk to you.
but-
It's forbidden. You believe in Jesus? No, I'm a Buddhist. Oh, sorry, can't talk to you. The only people you could witness
You believe
to
in
out
Jesus?
in service
Nope.
would be people who already believe that Jesus came in the flesh. That's it.
Right. Well,
Nobody else.
But by that point, you've already spoken to them, so you've already
You've already broken the
You
law.
might as well go like smoke a bowl or something.
Yeah. So even though I don't like Paul, you can't take Paul's words and make them mean what Watchtower says they mean. It doesn't work at all. It doesn't work historically, and it doesn't work according to any Bible scholar that I've ever read.
Yeah.
It just doesn't fly. And it sure doesn't work to the extreme that Watchtower tries to take their shunning policy. And if it was
Wow.
that
Yeah.
obviously in the scriptures, like you said, why didn't they start it in 1919 when Jesus supposedly cleansed the organization? Why did they wait till 1952 to do it at all?
I have no idea.
And in 1952, it didn't apply to everybody.
Right.
People who disassociated, you could still talk to.
Yeah.
It's just only people who judicially disfellowshipped, you couldn't until the early 80s because of Franz.
Right.
Because Franz left, brought a bunch of people with him. They left of their own accord.
And that is what we call going beyond.
Right. The
Yeah.
things that are written.
yeah.
Making
Yeah.
the rules up as we go.
Well,
Or that.
this
Yeah.
whole idea of disfellowshipping being discipline really ticks me off.
Yeah.
Actually, because as you said in the conversation, that's not what it's about at all. It's only about control. But the idea of it being discipline, I remember when I got married the first time, my grandmother and grandfather were supposed to come to my wedding, and they decided that a good time to tell me that they weren't going to come was on the morning of my wedding. And so I remember being on the phone with my grandmother
Christian love.
and asking her, but why did you wait to tell me until today? Of all the things, why would you do this? And she's just started screaming, take your spanking, take your spanking, take your spanking, come back to the truth, take your spanking. And I found that infuriating because
Wow.
I am
can't
a
imagine.
grown
It's
ass adult.
Yeah.
And ain't nobody gonna spank me without a safe word. Okay? Just hold on. And I was so mad that I threw the phone out the front door and it smashed against the tree. But who do these people think they are?
Yeah.
To say that they can discipline grown adults who are not under their they don't pay my bills.
Yep.
Who do they think they are?
They think they're God. Watchtower is Jehovah in the minds of
right.
most
Yes,
Jehovah's
that's
Witnesses.
absolutely true.
That's why
It
they
is.
say
It is.
when you leave Watchtower, you've left Jehovah. That's why they say when you come back to Watchtower, you're coming back
return
to
to
Jehovah.
Jehovah.
Turn it
They
down. They even have a
see
booklet.
them-
Oh, I know. I've gotten so
Brochure.
many copies of that stuff.
the governing body used to very overtly refer to themselves as the mouthpiece of God.
Mouthpiece of God.
And
Which
even
is
though
blasphemy.
And they still
Blasphemy.
think that, even though they also admit they're not inspired. You cannot be the mouthpiece of God and be uninspired, and yet somehow
And
they
then have
can't.
old night.
Yep.
But
new
they're
light,
very good at-
old light.
The mental gymnastics required to hold two opposing viewpoints at the same time, right? But they're not aware of it. So these are the inspired mouthpieces of God. This is Watchtower equals Jehovah, and yet elders make mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
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 How
Yeah,
could those
yeah.
things are mutually exclusive?
The governing body is Eli,
Yeah.
but they're the mouthpiece of God.
Yikes.
That does not work.
It doesn't compute. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then Jimmy, I hate it when they used to quote, "Where are we to go away to, Lord?" Wait a minute. He was talking to Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
If you are a Christian, Peter is talking to Jesus Christ. Who are we to go away to except you, Jesus Christ? And Watchtower applies that scripture to Jesus? No, to them, to
Right.
Watchtower. Once again, equating themselves with who most Christians view Jesus as God. So that they're equating themselves with, at the very minimum, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
And as most people would see it, God himself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blasphemy.
Yep, it is
Or as my
blasphemy.
mother would
Blasphemy.
say,
Blasphemy.
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 All right, and so then Jimmy starts talking about the factions because the guy brings up these things. Well, in this place, it's okay to do this. In this place, it's not okay to do that. And Jimmy's like, well, that's not a united brotherhood.
Right.
To which he can say
Did you hear
nothing.
Jesus say that?
Right.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Well, I love the hunting thing too, where they
Yeah.
talk about, we moved out to South Dakota and now they all hunt. Well, great.
And they're being used in the congregation
Yeah.
out in South Dakota.
Wow. Imagine if your greatest goal in life was to be used. I mean, seriously. But also, I just want to point out that of all these differences and things that they talk about being used in the congregation, and you can go here where if you like to hunt, move out west or something, seems to be what he's saying.
Yeah.
None of this applies if you're a woman.
Yeah, that's true.
None of it.
Yeah.
It's true.
Not one thing.
Yeah.
You are to be submissive and subservient no matter what if you are female. There are obvious reasons why I am not a Jehovah's Witness.
And we are very grateful. You are not.
I am horrible in submission. Horrible.
All right, well, that ends that clip. So let's play the next one.
Do you know how the beard thing came in play?
Soldiers used to they reach over and grab your beard, pull it, and split your neck. So that's why a lot of them start shaving their heads and the beard, so they couldn't.
No, as far as the organization, do you know why do you know why that happened? Okay. It was in the book Crisis of Conscience. I think it was Crisis of Conscience. He mentions it, but I think it was in another book called 30 Years a Watchtower Slave. Rutherford went over to Germany. Now, Rutherford replaced Russell. Russell had a beard. Okay, he had his beard. And there was a lot of brothers back in the day that had a beard that looked like Russell's. Well, when Rutherford came in, he basically didn't want anyone to emulate Charles Taz Russell. He had an inferiority complex with Russell. He didn't want anything. He was the man, he was in charge, and he didn't want nobody following Russell anymore. So when he went over to Germany, to the branch overseer asked Rutherford if Rutherford could get him a printing press. Well, Rutherford sat there in silence for a second, and he says, "If you take that thing off, I'll get you a printing press." And the next day, the branch overseer came back clean shaven. That's how it started.
Well, what does that show you about that branch overseer?
That shows me that he was scared of Rutherford and really wanted a printing press and did what Rutherford said for him to do.
That shows me he loved the brother so much he's willing to do that just to get that.
I don't know about that.
Well, like I say, everybody views things differently.
Rutherford was a piece of work. Rutherford was an alcoholic. He was a womanizer, and there's proof. Beth Sarim, do you know about Beth Sarim?
Who?
Beth Sarim, the house in California.
Well, look, this stuff means nothing to me anyway.
Yeah, I know, that's fine. But it means something to me, and the reason why is because I have literally gone back and looked at the history of Jehovah's Witnesses without Watchtower lenses. I've read the Proclaimer's book, all that, but it's a watered down history. Well, because if you look at everything, I mean, Rutherford even wrote a letter to Hitler saying, "Hey, we're on the same team. We agree with you. The Jews are bad." He wrote a letter to Hitler. And then he's involved in the government right there, writing a letter to Hitler asking, "Hey, we're on the same page. Please don't ban our work in Germany." Well, I mean, there's stuff that's been done in the organization that is all because of man. It has nothing to do with it.
We can go back through there and we find fault. Me and you can look at each other and find fault with each other. If we was wanting to find fault, it's there. We're going to find it.
But the thing is we are taught that this is Jehovah's one and only true organization.
And I believe that.
And why are there so many issues in the organization?
Well, it goes back when you got to deal with humans, you're going to have problems. Look what happened to Moses. Faithful man for years, but yet he didn't get the promised land because he made a mistake. So people make mistakes to do things. But like I say, if I didn't think this was the truth, I wouldn't be wasting my time when we're talking to you.
I appreciate you coming by and showing concern and wanting to help. I really do. And I appreciate that. But as far as I'm concerned right now, until people can start answering some questions without telling me new light or let's not look back at the history or the candor. I mean, the CO. I had the CO here I've had two brothers come. I had Brother Carr and Brother Morris come to talk to me.
Day, remember?
Yeah, you were here that day. They couldn't answer a single question I had. Then I had and the CO come. They couldn't answer the questions. They made crap up, and that's just legit. I've recorded the conversation, so I went back and looked at them. And when the CO says, when I asked him about the UN, the CO said, "Oh yeah, well, to be honest with you, we're still involved with the UN."
I did not know that.
What the hell? Why are you involved with? From 92 to 2001, Watchtower was an accredited NGO with the UN. They were in bed with the UN for those years. And then when the article came out in the Guardian newspaper in October 8th of 2001, exposing that fact, the very next day, Watchtower withdrew their application. It looks like they got their hands stuck in a cookie jar. And now they're still involved with the UN. And his explanation was, his explanation was, well, we have delegates that go to other countries and we need to make sure they're safe, so we reach out to the UN to make sure that our brothers and sisters are safe. Okay, critically thinking, you have been telling everybody that the UN is the wild beast. The wild beast is part of Satan's system, correct?
Right.
All right. So why are you going and asking Satan's system for help to protect God's people? Why can't God just do it himself?
Well, same reason Apostle Paul applied to Caesar.
He appealed to Caesar, but the CO said that Paul was a governing body member. However, there was no governing body back in the day. And if he was a governing body member, why did he have to go to the older men in Jerusalem if he was a governing body member?
Well, because they had it wasn't just a one-man operation back then. The other apostles and the older men. That's why they had to talk about things. Just come abstain from blood and circumcision and stuff like that. So one man just didn't come in point blank say this and all right and wrong.
But to go back to the UN thing, why? Why are they involved with the UN? We get reprimanded or get put in a back room if we go vote or if we do anything like that. Kids can't even be a little class president in school or anything. We're told to stay neutral. So why is Watchtower doing that?
Well, see, I don't know why they went. I have,
and see, these are things that I have come up with that I have found out that don't make any sense to me.
Well, like I say, is it some kind of legal? They got to jump through hoops like everybody else. They got to do things legally with the country. They got to go through state laws, federal laws, all this stuff.
When you become an accredited NGO, you actually agree to back up what the UN.
What is the NCO?
It's a non-government. It's called an accredited NGO is a non-governmental organization. Okay, and you have to apply to the UN. And Watchtower's explanation for that was they needed a library card. They needed to be an NGO so that they can use the library. That's not true. You don't have to become an NGO to have the use of the UN library.
Well, the thing is, too, UN and all that stuff. See, this is a worldwide organization. Evidently, they got to have some kind of accreditation with them to cross these boundaries and stuff.
No,
you just can't go.
I don't agree with that.
Just like you can't start a business here and go start trading with China. You got to go through the government.
Oh, I understand that.
So,
but if you're going to rail against the UN and say that they're the wild beast and they're the disgusting thing, they're the disgusting thing. Why are you having any association with them?
Well,
okay, Jimmy continues with his now well-known presentation of the facts. And I noticed you borrowed one of my lines from the round table. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good.
I've learned a lot from the round table.
Yeah. But we'll get to that. He talks about the beard origins, which we've gone through many times. We don't need to go through again. It's very obvious that the beard thing is man-made, that it was started by Rutherford because of the rivalry with Russell, and that's where it came from. But you pointed out something that he said that was really good.
Yeah, I did actually. Okay, so in that segment, he says, but what does that say about the brother?
Capitulating to Rutherford.
Basically implying that he, had an obedient spirit and that he did the right thing in accepting, the arbitrary non-scriptural counsel from Rutherford. And the first thing that I thought was, wait a minute, what does it say about Rutherford?
Yeah.
What does it say about Rutherford? That says a hell of a lot more about Rutherford as the leader of Jehovah's organization, God's mouthpiece, than it does about that brother. And in our modern society, that is exactly what we would call victim blaming.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because he sat there and he said, well, what does it say about the brother? Well, what does it say about Rutherford?
Yeah.
What about him? What about the actual abuser here? What about the actual tyrant who actually has the authority? Mm-hmm. I found that very disturbing. But this is how we were as witnesses.
It's true. Mm-hmm. And then
We were apologists.
Yeah.
Then you bring up Beth Serene.
Who?
And I never thought about that because it starts with Beth. I didn't think about
It's,
it.
you know, the harlot.
Beth. You know.
Rutherford's harlot.
Now that's important to me though, that he said who. He didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
First of all, it's in the Proclaimer's book. And this guy is quite old enough to remember the Proclaimer's book, but
Well,
he doesn't know.
If he
That is
has
the
the
saddest
bound
part about
volumes
it.
memorized, he ought to remember the Proclaimer's book.
Yeah. But it
Jehovah's
shows
Witnesses
you
don't know about the organization.
they don't. That's the point. They don't know it. And in fact, even in the Proclaimer's book, it's kind of a footnote.
Yeah, it's only like
it's just
that
a little
big.
thing. Even though it was a huge deal at the time.
Yeah.
It's a little footnote in the Proclaimer's book. And then you make a point about that, about how the Proclaimer's book, Watchtower leaves out a lot of details about their history. And we came across that in the last video we recorded about the way witnesses hide what they really think to the public.
Yeah.
Because I started digging through newspapers.com and found a bunch of old newspapers about when the flag salute issue happened in Massachusetts. The way and I went back because I didn't read that before we had the discussion because it was kind of last minute, but I went back to the Proclaimer's book this afternoon to see how did they cover that in the Proclaimer's book. It's not, they talk about it, of course,
You
and
mean
they
they
talk
did?
about all the negative effects and all that.
Yeah.
But they do not say anything about the little boys saying that the flag is the devil's emblem.
Yep.
And the United States is the devil's kingdom, which is what he said, which his dad told him to say.
Yeah.
Which is what kickstarted the firestorm in the media that got so many poor witness kids kicked out of school and even adult witnesses thrown in jail sometimes because they wouldn't
made
make
them
their
have to
kids
polish
say
their image.
do the salute, and tarred and feathered and all these terrible things happened to them. Why? Because of what that little boy's dad told him to say and how horrible it sounded.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but-
it triggered the firestorm. My point being, if he hadn't have put it that way, if he had been, look, we see the flag as an object of worship, and so we respectfully choose not to salute it. If he had treated it in a very different way.
But that wasn't what they were going for, because that wasn't part of the free publicity campaign that they were running at the time. If you read William Schnell's book, 30 Years of Watchtower Slave, he talks about the psychology behind the process to baptism, which is brainwashing. But he also talks about the deliberate attention seeking, the deliberate outrage creation, the things that witnesses would do and the things they would preach in the middle of the public square on Palm Sunday in a Catholic town to get people upset and worked up because it was free press.
Right.
That's what they were doing. They were trying to shock people. They were trying to provoke outrage because it got them in the news, which was advertising they didn't have to pay for.
Yeah. Interesting. And just like, and that makes it make a lot more sense.
It's all a money-making venture.
But the part that bothered me the most about it is that Rutherford also got on his bullhorn and raised more Cain about it and called the behavior Hitlerism at the time. And just all this stuff, just really bad, which put more little kids in hot water at the schools and more parents in prison and all that. He did the same thing he did when he wrote the letters to Hitler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And made it worse than it had to be. Now, it may have been bad anyway, but he made it so much worse than it had to be. And that hurt all those people that were Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're looking to him like he's some kind of mouthpiece of God. When he's hurting them, now I understand, just to get free publicity.
Right. Well, and then if you look at the persecution in the Nazi concentration camps, from what I've read, I believe that wouldn't have been nearly as bad if he had not been deliberately provoking Hitler.
Yeah. Oh, he definitely was. When you read the letters he wrote, because
They
they're
have
all
a
on
lot-
JW Facts.
they have a lot to
He
answer
just
for.
pissed him off.
Because it's not just that. I mean, that's people's lives.
Which,
it's not
which
just
cost
that.
people
Look
their
at
lives.
Malawi.
Yeah. That's true.
Malawi
too, yeah.
and Mexico. It was the
Yep.
exact same thing.
Yep.
Mexicans could buy the card and Malawians couldn't.
Couldn't.
So
Yep.
who got murdered?
Yep.
Well, and the thing is, too, you know what makes me think, or what's disturbing here is that when you tried to actually tell him, witness history, which, like I said, this is something for active Jehovah's Witnesses out here to think about. We ex-members and worldly people, as you want to call us, know more about the history of your organization
Yes,
than
we do.
you do.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes, we do.
And what did
Because
he
we're
say?
allowed to read it.
Because we're allowed to read it.
Oh, that stuff don't matter to me.
He said it doesn't matter.
It
Now
doesn't
think about
matter,
it.
yeah.
It does matter. The history does matter. This is why people aren't flocking in like they used to. This does matter. History does matter. So
And if
What
it
came-
doesn't, then whatever we did to get disfellowship doesn't
Doesn't
matter
matter,
either.
yeah.
You can't have
Yeah.
it both ways.
What I thought when he
Good point.
said that,
Sure.
that it doesn't matter, is I thought, let's say you've got a doctor
yeah.
who's got a history of really messing up the surgery.
Yeah.
Wow.
Are
Yeah.
you going to say, it doesn't matter, it's in the past?
Yeah.
But he's still a doctor.
He still believes he can do good.
Yeah.
Right. He still has a degree hanging on the wall.
It
Yeah.
does matter.
It
that worldly
matters.
People know more than you do about your own organization that you serve.
And
Yeah.
hello, Watchtower used to talk about the history of the Catholic Church all the time, and it mattered to them,
Wow.
even though the
Right.
Catholics
That history
aren't-
mattered.
They're not
Yeah.
burning people at the stake
That's a good
anymore,
point.
but they never ever ceased to bring up the fact that they used to do it, and
Right.
that made them blood guilty, and that's why they're babbling the great.
But how
Wow.
is it any worse?
Hypocrisy at its finest.
How is that any worse than what the witnesses are doing?
It's not.
Yeah. It's
And
the same thing.
Thing is with
Same
Watchtower
thing.
now, they're wanting to go back and destroy their history.
Yeah.
Destroy their publications. Not things not being available on JW.org.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not there. Yeah, a lot of the stuff's not there.
So when people go to
It
look
is-
this stuff up, or if they're going to look,
Yeah.
it's not there. They can't
And you know,
find it.
honestly, it's even worse than that. It's considered apostate material. Now they never come out. The witnesses never come out and say that. But you know, when I
But
was
they
in
treat it like it.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
They
say,
treat it
now
like
we
it.
don't want to. We want to stay ahead with Jehovah's organization. Now we don't want to be looking at old light and basically deviating from the past. So they treat even their old literature,
Yeah.
That's
and
true.
their
That's a
old
good point.
points
Yeah.
of view as apostasy.
Because every time I brought a point out of
Their
the
own.
Worldwide Security Prince
Yeah.
of Peace book to the elders and the seer, well, when was that book written?
Yeah,
Why does it
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
freaking
Doesn't
matter?
If it's Jehovah's
They
organization,
wrote it.
doesn't
That's
matter.
all
Well,
that
let's not go
matters.
back into history, Jimmy. I mean,
Yeah.
You know,
Somebody
Don't
pointed out
do that.
recently. Somebody pointed out. I had never thought about this. The Awake on Watchtower Online Library only goes back to 1970.
right?
The Watchtower goes all the way back to 1950. Why doesn't the Awake go back to 1950? Well, somebody made the point. Well, it's because it's in the late 60s in the Awake where they clearly point to 1975
yeah.
as the year that it's all going to happen.
They just omit
1969.
So
all
they
of
just,
it.
they just omit everything
Was
prior
it
to that.
1968 or 1969
68,
where
yeah.
they said
68.
young people today shouldn't even bother
Right.
with a career
Yeah.
because you're going to be in the new system before,
And now
Yeah,
those old
that's
people
1968.
don't have jobs.
or they're dead,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And weren't able to take care of themselves.
Yeah,
Or their
Watchtower
family,
has
or their
shown-
family.
or their
Watch-
evil apostate children had to take care of them.
Yeah.
Watchtower has shown that
Education.
it has no problem with revisionist history.
Yep.
It goes back and changes things that they failed at, like 1989, January 1st, where they said the end was coming before the end of the 20th century. And then even by the time the bound volume came out, they had changed it.
Yeah.
And on the website, it shows it says in our day rather than the 20th
That's
century.
not what it said
But
at
they're
first.
spirit
That's
directed.
not what it
That's
said.
spirit direction
No, no,
right
no.
there,
They are
buddy.
neither inspired nor
Nor
infallible.
infallible.
They remind me of 1984 so much. The
They are
Ministry of
insufferable.
Truth.
Yeah.
Because in 1984, George Orwell's novel, which is a fantastic novel, if you
Yes.
haven't read it,
still
read
never
it.
seen
Or
it.
if you haven't seen it, the movie.
Read
I
it.
know.
Don't even if you don't want to read it, the movie that was made in 1984.
Yeah.
Called
Are we doing
1984.
another commercial?
They did a really good job.
Is this another
They've-
one? Oh,
they're
okay.
long past making money off of this, so it's all right. There's a ministry called the Ministry of Truth, which I think it's interesting that they're called the Truth.
Yes.
And it's their job to go back and change everything. That
Oh,
was
they're called
ever-
the Truth?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Ministry of Truth
Oh,
is what they're
holy
called.
shit.
they put
They're-
everything down
That
the memory
sounds
hole.
so
Yeah.
familiar.
You want to know something funny?
Wait a minute.
But
My
hang on,
mother-
hang on. I want
Oh,
everyone
go
to know that their only job
Yeah.
was to go back and find everything that they got wrong and to change it so that it was right.
As if it was always
now.
there.
Destroy the evidence.
Yeah, as
But
if
that
it had
doesn't
always
matter.
been correct.
We've always been at war with
that
Eurasia.
And that's what Watchtower does. They go
Yeah.
back and change, and it's even easier for them now because it's all online. It's all
Right.
digital. They just go back and change anything that
So you
was
want to know
wrong.
something funny that may have contributed to my attitude? My mother wanted to read that book when I was young, and she had to have an excuse, I guess, to read a non-Watchtower book. So she actually read that book to me.
Really?
And it was about animals, so, no,
Right.
she read Animal Farm to me.
Oh, that's a great one.
She read
That's a
Animal
great one
Farm
too,
to me,
yeah.
and then I looked up when
need
I
to
was
get in the
probably
loop. I'm like
11 or
that.
12. It was close. No, it was before I was baptized, so I would have been 10 or 11. Went and looked up what else he had written. It was Orwell.
Yep.
So Animal Farm, I was just like,
You,
and then I read 1984 and was like, whoa.
Uh-oh.
And 1984 is Watchtower.
Yeah, it is.
really is.
Yeah.
I guess if you just want, I mean, they teach God doesn't change, or their Jehovah doesn't change.
Right.
That's what they teach, but they are constantly changing,
He totally didn't change from the New Testament.
always changing.
Old to New Testament.
So
right. Like, he's a completely different
Very-
person.
it doesn't match up with what they're teaching people.
It doesn't.
And that's one of the things that, while I was waking up, I just couldn't wrap my head around that.
Right.
I was taught for years, God doesn't change, but you guys are changing things like crazy.
Left and
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And that's why they don't, like you said, they treat the old stuff like apostate material
Right.
because if you read that, you'll see how much they've changed.
But that's why there's so much control, too. That's why there's so many limitations on what witnesses are allowed to read, what they're allowed to watch, who they're allowed to talk to, what they're allowed to listen to, because they say that it's a danger to your faith, that apostasy is a danger to your faith, that education is a danger to your faith. But if it was true, what would it have to worry about?
Yeah.
I mean, gravity, okay?
Thank
Gravity.
I've always
It's
said
going to be true whether I say it's true or not.
Yeah.
If I drop this pin, it's going to fall.
That's right.
Now, I can tell you all day that when I let go of this pin, it's going to soar over there and land on top of the camera.
Yeah.
And you can choose to believe me, but gravity is still going to be true.
Yeah.
No matter who you talk to, that pin's still going to fall.
Truth is not
unless
afraid
you're,
of scrutiny.
in outer
Yeah,
space.
it's not. Truth doesn't fear scrutiny. It
Right.
doesn't.
Watchtower organization is an active apostate in their own
Yeah.
right. Because they are, if you take the true definition of the word,
Yep.
a change from a belief, they're changing their beliefs all the time.
That's true.
Constantly.
They're constantly apostatizing
They
From
are,
their own selves.
from their own self.
They are active apostates
Wow.
against their own selves.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
And
Irony.
one way in which you get into it, to get back to the conversation, and I'm glad we're talking about all this. Even it's like this conversation is just the trigger for us talking about
Yeah.
Opened
everything
up
else, which is
Pandora.
really good. It's good. I like what we're covering. But then of course you get into the United Nations and the wild
go-to.
beast. Does
You really like that one, Jimmy.
why does God's organization need Satan's help in order to be protected? You
That
know?
was epic.
Yeah. And then he talks about how Paul's not a governing body member, which is true, because why would he have to go to the so-called governing body if he
Ludicrous.
was a governing body member? Doesn't make any sense.
Why would there even be a governing body? And the governing body of what?
There wasn't. If you read the passage that Watchtower tries to claim shows the governing body, what it is it's James presiding over all the older men in Jerusalem. Now you got to think, how many older men were there in Jerusalem at that
And what
time?
classifies as older men?
And
Yeah.
just, it's a very generic term.
I'm
You
wondering,
have to
does
think
that
that
necessarily mean elders? Or we
No,
talking
no, no.
Everybody over
authoritarian
64 or
religious
all older
figures?
man means, when the
Yeah.
Bible says it, is what it says. An older man. They were thought of as being wise. Well, you're old, so you must know something. And so they would get old people.
So they were elders, but not necessarily appointed.
No, they weren't
Right.
appointed in the way we think of as
Right,
elders.
authoritarian elders.
It wasn't
who
a title.
manage.
It wasn't a title. It was,
Right.
it was an
descriptor.
adjective.
Like it's a managerial.
You look old. Come talk to us. You know, that's really how it was.
You've been around
great.
a while. You
So
probably
it's
know
more of a
Yeah,
term
they
of
learn about
endearment or
that.
respect.
It was
Yeah.
respect.
Or
because
admiration.
You're older, you must have some wisdom or whatever. So who
Like
knows
Mr.
how many
Or Mrs.
of these guys were there? This was not a small group. And here's the
Or a
thing.
sir.
They
Yeah.
only ever met, as far as the New Testament ever says, once.
Yeah, that's
For
true.
that
Because
one
I've only read it once.
situation regarding circumcision that Paul brought to them. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
don't
out
even
of
get me started
that,
on that.
out of that, the Watchtower invents this idea of a governing body that consists of only a couple of people,
Right.
just a few old dudes
We can control everything.
that control everything.
We can play God.
And
can be
wait,
God.
this is important. Paul brought the matter to them to get their input and a decision. They didn't contact Paul and say, we are creating a ruling on this and you need to abide by it.
Right.
Governing body issues rulings all the time about what they think is or is not the truth or whatever, how doctrine should or should not be.
Whether or not you should have pillows.
If it was really like the first century, what would happen is the circuit overseers or elders or whatever would come to them and say, we need a decision on this. They would gather all of the elders in New York together and they would have a big assembly and talk about it and try to come to a decision. The governing body does not behave in any way at all whatsoever the way the first century single event shows the so-called governing body of Jerusalem behaving.
Yep.
There's no
Learn something new every
connection.
day.
There's no connection. It's just another fabrication of the Watchtower.
Bunch of
Is your brain
bullshit.
going like this?
It's
Your head's not
expanding
this episode?
faster than the universe. is.
Is your hair going to be able to keep stay calm with it?
No,
No?
it's gonna fly right off my head.
I'm in the dock over here.
I mean,
And,
seriously.
okay, and then the guy says he's trying to defend, but he can't. He's really flustered at this point.
Yeah.
He's trying to respond
He's
to Jimmy. He's
reaching
like,
for every damn thing.
why are they having anything to do with the UN if it's the wild beast, says Jimmy. Like, well, they got to do things legally. And then he uses our favorite
really?
Watchtower word, evidently. You got to have a connection with the UN as a worldwide organization,
That
which
is
means
not true.
no, it's not true at all. And like he said, you don't need to be an NGO to get a library card. It's
Yeah.
like any other library. You can go in there and get a library card, driver's license, whatever. It's easy. It's not a hard thing to do. So it's just a lie after a lie after a lie after a lie. You are saying you need to hobnob with Satan and his minions in order to receive
Makes perfect
protection.
sense.
For what? I thought Jehovah was protecting you. And we
Yeah.
talked
Right.
about this on our last video too, that I really believe that in the past, in the earlier days of the organization, they really thought that they had God's protection.
I think they believed it.
Yeah.
And now,
Yeah.
after God has repeatedly failed to protect them
they're kind of
over and
backing
over and
away.
over again, they realize they need the world's protection.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they go to the world, Satan's governments, more and more and more to try to establish their own rights and,
And it's what they're
protection.
doing is also very manipulative. But what's funny to me is, we all studied the Revelation book more times than anybody ever needed to study
3
that
times.
stupid book.
Yeah.
Now,
I love the pictures though. With
oh
that.
God, it was so drug induced.
yeah.
Oh my God, so bizarre. And what's even funnier is the precursors in the old books, the Rutherford books and stuff.
Yeah.
I've done a video on they're very similar pictures, but how their art progressed is another really fun topic to look at. But studying that Revelation book, it just pounds it in. The UN is the scarlet colored wild beast of Revelation. It's the wild beast. And so effectively what they're saying then is, oh, well, we need protection to be able to go preach Jehovah's word. So what we're saying is, hey, wild beast, well, will you watch our back, please, wild beast? You got us? Okay, we're
Satan,
going
can
in.
you
wild
help
beast.
You know
Preach
what?
against
Watchtower has kicked themselves in
Jehovah's
their
not
own
doing
ass
it?
on
What
this.
is-
Yeah.
They really have.
And here's
Yeah.
the reason why. They pounded it into the heads of the witnesses 3 times to study that daggone Revelation
Yeah.
book. All right, so everybody that went through that, the indoctrination was basically pounded into
Yep.
their head.
Last days, last days,
So
last days.
Yeah.
when they wake up and find out that, oh my God, the organization was involved with the UN, that is going to affect a lot. It affected me.
Yeah,
That is
me
the
too.
one thing. That is the first thing I noticed, besides 607. But I was just like shocked.
Yeah.
607, I was like, okay, that's weird. That doesn't make sense. But the UN shocked me
Yeah.
because we were told the UN was bad, stay away from it, don't get involved. So Watchtower, you kicked yourself in your own butt on that one.
Basically.
That's the great thing about the Watchtower. They are
They do it all the time.
They are
their
a,
own ass.
they
all
are
the
a
time.
buffet of hypocrisy and lies and
true.
half-truth. There's so many things you can go to and put on your plate and say, "What
they're
the
running
hell?"
down the
That
side.
gets you
It's just
out of the
kicking their own
organization.
ass from behind.
But even
with their
if you're,
heels.
even if you're, even if you're a real believer, though, I mean, I think about there were a lot of things I didn't believe back in the day when I was, really trying to get my head straight and figure out what I believed in. But I still believed that maybe the organization was right and maybe they still had the truth. I mean, in their eyes,
wanted to. I
maybe
wanted
there
to. Me too.
was hope for me.
That's
So
what took me so long.
when I went in to the judicial committee, I honestly felt like they could not disfellowship me because I still believed that if Jehovah was real, that maybe he, would tell them that I was not a bad person,
Right.
that they would understand that I just had questions that they could not answer. Then to have them turn around and say, well, they actually, one of the elders in my judicial committee was like wagging his finger in my face and saying, you're a witch and you're demonized and all this stuff. And it's like,
That's real loving.
Yeah.
wait a minute, there's no way that this is, I mean, it hit me in the face. Like, there's no way that these people have any touch with any God of any kind whatsoever. Like, whoa. And even in that way, you think about how many honest believers end up in a judicial committee and are faced with the fact that, oh crap, my life is being controlled by these people who
Yep.
have literally no authority and no right to be doing this.
Yeah.
And there's nothing spiritual about this process at all.
Nope. Nothing.
So yeah, UN, child abuse, 607, judicial committees, pick your poison.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. There's so many things.
They've shot themselves in the foot over and over again.
Tony by himself
Tight
is
pants,
responsible
Tony.
for
Oh my-
so many people leaving the organization.
All of his talks are insane.
They are. They really are.
He's got one that talks about people roasting
used to
like
be my
hot dogs.
favorite.
Yeah, the hot
Yes.
dogs one. The
There
tight
will be a lot of
pants.
Him
dead
and
people.
Rutherford were my favorites
Tight
when I was a
pants.
witness.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Him and Rutherford.
He was
I
he was the psycho soldier witness when he was
Wow,
in.
that's
it was.
terrifying.
Yeah.
What do they
That's-
call? God, what's the legalistic ones? I was one of the
Yeah,
legalistic ones.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now that you're out, you
Yeah.
can apply that same intensity
Yeah.
against
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
hey,
can.
that's all the
You
better
created
for
a
us.
monster.
That's
They
right.
created a
Congratulations.
lot of
You know, I
monsters.
thought
A
about
lot of
that.
monsters.
I was thinking about that earlier today. I was like,
Because you're right.
I could have gone to the individuals that did me and Beth wrong. And I could have punched the dude in the face and felt really good about it. I could have done
Yeah.
that. I could
Let's
have.
do it. I got you.
But no, I have no doubt you could take
Now
all
we're
of them
talking. Yes.
I got a feeling she could
at
take
once.
all of us.
At once. But I
she
could
could take us all
have.
out.
I
activism.
could have had that.
Very aggressive.
No, not yet. Too soon.
I'm
Too
listening.
soon. Okay. All right.
I could have had that little
Damn it,
win.
John. I was about to
I could have done
Yeah.
that. But rather than that little win, I started the channel
Yeah.
and I have now had over 2 million views
Wow.
Yeah, it's been
in
a hell of a lot.
9 months of this channel. Well, 10 months of this channel.
Yeah.
And I hear from
We've
people
kicked
all the
ass.
time, thanks to us, thanks to the other videos that I've done, that they either stopped studying or they've left or it helped them to wake up or to get over them still being mentally in, even if they
should tell
were
them your
physically
story.
out. All of those things. And so my revenge is so much greater, if you want to call it revenge.
Oh, it's
Well, I'm thinking
Then
about
it could have been if I had just done that one-on-one confrontation,
Right.
And they wouldn't have listened anyway.
Well, and that makes me think too of there's a saying that's the best revenge is living well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, for
Yes.
all the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses out there, the best revenge is living well.
Yeah.
Go get your education, have a happy
Absolutely.
life, enjoy
Yes.
what you do, and don't worry about them.
Well, I think about, and this is kind of a side note, but kind of related. I just think about, some of the work that you and the moderators have done, helping to encourage a lot of those who are really just broken and shattered from leaving this damn cult.
Yeah, I put a post on
Been a
Watching
lot of
Watchtower just last 24 hours. And I basically told everybody that
watching Watchtower is a safety net. We're a safety net to help those who have just come out of the organization or are thinking about leaving. Because when you come out, you're broken. You're broken, you're depressed, you're heartbroken, you're angry.
Terrified.
There's so many emotions. And so we, as a team of moderators and admins at Watching Watchtower, we're there to help. I think we've talked to people. We've had 2 suicide scares.
Yeah.
And our team came through and helped them out and gave them the support that they needed. And so our goal is to provide that support for folks so they can get stronger. And as you get stronger, like we are, we've gotten to the point where we're strong and we're doing our activism, we're speaking out.
Right.
So if we make all these other people stronger, then they're going to be out doing activism and helping other folks. And then eventually, if we can actually make a plea to the worldwide community, the EXJW community, to quit the infighting and pull together, it would be unbelievable what we could accomplish. And we could take Watchtower down a lot quicker. Sorry, I got on the side.
No, I agree. And I will say
agree.
that what you guys did for my mom's funeral, I mean, that was, I was floored by that. The fact that, I mean, and pretty much everybody that attended was. And people still were asking me about who you guys were.
Jason's got a lot of attention from the little old ladies in the hall.
He did. He just loved his hair.
Them older sisters love that hair.
I love your hair.
But it was incredible to me to say that there were all these people who, as yet, I didn't even know, except for online. Would come and support me on one of the hardest days of my life and be there and not there, no expectations, no, now you have to like be in our religion or whatever. It was just caring and kindness. And now look at this. I have all these new friends and
we're not alone.
Right.
Yep.
It's
We're in this
amazing.
together.
And I think that is so important. In fact, I did a video about it afterward, that it's so important that we be able to provide that for each other.
Absolutely.
Because it's something that we never got as Jehovah's Witnesses.
That's true.
And it's something that a lot of people come out of the witnesses thinking doesn't exist.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then maybe brothers like the one who talked to you one day can wake up and no longer have to live in fear. Fear and constant condemnation that a God or that Jehovah even is going to destroy them for using their own critical thought process that we were born to have.
Yep.
Or for growing the hair that naturally occurs on your face.
So no, you're right, John. To get back to your point, yeah, definitely worth it.
Yeah. Totally.
Definitely worth it.
And it takes a lot of time away from other things I could be doing. But because I see the response, because since
this has become our
we've
social
been
work.
doing this and we've been shouting out Watching Watchtower. Now we have over 1,000 people on that. The channel, as of now, has over 15,000 subscribers, over 2 million views.
We're reaching people.
impressive.
We are making the difference.
It
that we
makes a
always
difference
wanted
in
to see.
people's lives. And I see it in the comments all the time. It matters to people. To know they're not alone, to know they're not crazy, that they were
Yes.
right
Yeah.
about these things.
If
And to
everybody
see
didn't
other
wanna
people
use me,
agree
well,
with
that's
it.
okay. Maybe the activism world.
Yeah, that,
wants to use me.
that comment.
Maybe they need me.
That comment that people make. I'm glad I found out that I'm not the only one that feels this way.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is amazing and so powerful.
And I hear people say all the time, "Oh, when we're going to bring Watchtower down, we're going to bring Watchtower down," and that's great, and I want that to happen. But it's just as important to me to catch the people who are being either thrown
Yes.
out
Right.
or falling out,
Yes.
Right.
so that they don't land on their face, as it is to make Watchtower topple completely, because those people need support.
Right.
Well, see, here the thing is with Watchtower, if they want to run their thing, as long as if they got rid of the shunning,
Yep.
and they weren't protecting
Child
Go
abusers.
just
Yeah.
pedophiles, if they weren't doing, if they were just
Blood transfusions.
if they were
Yeah.
just a crazy religion that believed in a paradise earth and didn't bother anybody, didn't go out and field service,
harm
and
done.
yeah,
No harm
you
done.
go do what
Yeah.
you need to do.
Right.
But No,
It's
they won't do
affecting
that.
people's lives that it's a
Yeah.
problem.
Right.
It
And
does,
honestly, I don't really care about bringing them down that much. I care about protecting people from
Yeah.
what they're doing, particularly children. I mean, honestly, if they want to keep existing as a second-rate book publishing website driven whatever, as long as they want to,
Quit.
they're welcome to do that.
Yeah.
Hurting people.
Right.
Quit
Yeah.
taking their lives away from them and destroying them.
Yeah.
Right. And leave my family
destroying
out of it.
families.
Yeah,
Yeah,
leave
destroy
the
the- yeah.
families out of it. That's really
You
it.
do that,
Amen.
Yeah.
we might talk.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's all step off our soapboxes. But we deserve to have
I'm
a few
really
moments
short
on.
without this.
That's what
What'd you say?
I said I'm really short without the soapbox to stand on.
heels. That's what that's for. Okay, so let's listen to the next clip, and then we'll talk about it.
You know, like I say,
So I hate to be bouncing around, but the UN and then the problem with child abuse, those are the two things that I am very upset with right now.
okay, the UN and what else?
Child abuse,
Child
the
abuse.
covering up of child abuse. There's thousands of cases in the organization. They just found out in Australia, they did a thing in 2015, they did the Australian Royal Commission, where the Australian Royal Commission went in and looked at organizations to see how they were handling child abuse. They found in Jehovah's Witnesses alone 1,006 cases that were never reported to the authorities. And do you know what the CEO said? If you want to have sex with kids in Australia, or if you want to have, you can have a sex with kids in Australia if you want to, and you don't have to report it. That's what the CEO said.
I don't know anything about that, but I know here they had a case down there in Siler City, Spanish over, and when they found out, cops got him all. He pulling time.
And that's fine. I mean, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
But to hear the other brothers give me the explanation on it, they're trying to say that that they do take care of it. But the Shepherd of the Flock of God book says that the first thing they're supposed to do is call the branch. No, you call the freaking authorities is who you call. You don't call the branch.
Well, it's just a Watchtower still in there recently and stuff, kind of straightening that out evidently for some kind of.
No, that Watchtower article, it basically called it a sin. They did not call it a crime. They did not come out specifically and say child abuse is a crime.
Well,
they
pretty
call
much it did because.
And they beat it. No, they didn't. I'm sorry. They didn't call it a crime.
Then why they tell the
They call it a
authorities got to
sin.
be informed on it?
Yeah, but the elders don't. That's not the first call they make. They call the branch first.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't.
Yeah,
Did
they
that
do.
article say they called the branch first? I don't remember that
Yes,
part.
yes. They call the branch.
Well,
They call the branch first,
what
and
difference does it make?
it makes a huge difference because if you're not reporting child abuse, then that leaves the person that's doing it a chance to hurt other kids.
Well, I'm talking about. Did it say you call a branch first, wait 6 months, call a cop or something? I mean, what if they just make one
The
call? after
organization
other?
does not want to call the cops because if you call the cops, it looks bad. It brings reproach on
Well,
Jehovah's
according to that
name.
article, there, it's their obligation to call the cops.
Yeah,
That's what-
I totally agree. But if a kid, here's the thing, if a kid is being abused by his mom and dad, and the kid goes to the elders should call the cops right then and there, but they don't. They call the branch, then they tell little Johnny, oh, well, it's okay, just leave it in Jehovah's hands. I'm sure things aren't as bad as you're making it out to be. Maybe you're just being rebellious and you want to get back at your parents. The other brother said that, so that's why I can say that.
Well, the thing of it is, the bad thing about it, when you get the cops involved, they go nuts. In other words, there ain't no such thing as innocent until proven guilty. If somebody makes a claim on something, boom, they take them away from you.
That kind of sounds like Watchtower and the elders, the way they treat some people. And
Well,
when it comes
what
to
I'm
the
saying,
fellowshipping,
the cops, you're guilty. They take the kids, and even if the kids don't want to go, they're going to take them.
well, until they can get the investigation done, I think that's a good
Well,
thing.
a lot of times investigation shows nothing.
Protect the kids. But right now, there's a $66 million class action lawsuit going on in Canada against Watchtower for child abuse. They lost a case last September. They had to pay out $35 million to a case in Montana where the brothers failed to notify the authorities. There's also a case in California where Watchtower was being fined $4,000 a day because they would not turn over information that the authorities wanted. So basically, Watchtower was not complying with the superior authorities. That's all. This is documented.
Okay. Well, we probably go on all day.
Yeah, I definitely could. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so
But
much.
the thing is, like I say, I mean,
I'm having-
who's got the truth then? If we don't, who has the truth?
Jesus has got the truth.
Well, that's true, but he also said it'd be an organization here on the earth.
No, he didn't.
Sure he did.
He gave that parable of the faithful and discreet slave. He never said that there was going to be an organization.
Well, not maybe you use the word organization.
Yeah, he never. But see that parable of the faithful and discreet slave, that's what it was. It was a parable. It wasn't a prophecy.
I don't know about that. I'd go back and reread that.
Yeah, check that, because that was a parable. It wasn't a prophecy.
So let's see if I understand what you're saying. So in other words, mankind needs nothing now except just sit down and read his own Bible and make his own way.
Mankind, in my opinion, and a lot of people, I mean, even people that aren't witnesses, I mean, even some witnesses feel this way. As long as you obey what Jesus said, what were his only two commandments? What was Jesus' only two commandments to the disciples?
Well, I'm assuming what you're saying is, love Jehovah with your whole heart and your neighbor as yourself.
Exactly. He said those were the greatest commandments.
Okay.
So if you do that, if you show love and you show respect to other folks, and you believe in God, then only God can read hearts. Only Jehovah and Jesus can read hearts.
That's true.
But why do religions insert themselves into that relationship? Why do they do it? Well, one, we all know that religions are there a lot of times to control people.
Oh, yeah.
They're there to control people.
But the thing is, the Bible also says, first of all, there's other commandments. He gave a commandment only to marry into the Lord. He gave a commandment to go out and preach. I mean, there's other commandments in there. That's two greatest ones. Second of all, in the scripture says, do not forsake the gathering of yourselves together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not an individual thing.
And he said, as long as there was two or three meeting, then I am with you.
Okay. But that did not say not to go to it. That's talking about, like two or three people talking together and all.
But it also didn't say that you were required to go to, 5 meetings a week.
Well, that's true.
It didn't say that.
That's true. But
So-
we had the example back then. They had meetings in the homes.
Yeah, they had meetings in homes.
Yep.
And right now, with the way Watchtower is doing anything, they're kind of being very deceptive with this whole Kingdom Hall stuff, because they're trying to say there's growth, and right now Watchtower is not growing. They're not growing. Their growth rate is less their growth rate is less than the world's birth rate right now, like 1.3%. And Watchtower is spinning it and trying to say, oh, we're consolidating these congregations because we need the money to help the brothers in Africa and build Kingdom Halls. No, they need money to help pay these daggone child abuse cases right now. That's what they're doing.
Whatever. Like I say, if I didn't think it's the truth, I wouldn't be here.
And
I wouldn't be wasting my time or yours.
I have really been struggling since December when I first found out a bunch of this stuff. The rabbit hole goes deep, and unfortunately, everybody that's in the organization that's really in it, they don't know this stuff. Watchtower is not going to put on JW.org under the news. They're not going to put on there about the Australian Royal Commission. They're not going to talk about the lawsuits. They don't put that stuff on there.
Who don't?
The Watchtower.
Well, how come the news ain't putting it on there? I don't hear.
Oh,
it
it is.
I never hear it.
It is. There's articles, and there has been Leah Remini. She did a special about the witnesses and everything, and she actually had like 12 former witnesses telling their story. There's news reports in Canada that have done things. News reports in England. It's just starting to happen here in the United States. But all across the world right now, yeah, there are news channels that are doing stories about this stuff. And most of it's child abuse. And
It's being done. They need to do something about it. But
I just, right now, until I see some changes in some stuff, until I see Watchtower change some of their policies that they put in place that aren't scriptural, I'm having a hard time with it.
I understand what you're saying.
I'm having a very hard time with it. I don't think they should be involved with the UN. I don't think there should be child abuse in the organization. I don't believe in shunning. I don't think it's loving. I just don't. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, I don't know how you view about your youngers having to discipline them, but it might not seem loving to others, but you got to do it.
I mean, yeah, I've got to, show my kids the right. Well, I don't have kids, but I got to show my grandkids, hey, you can't do that, you can't do that. That's different than completely shunning them.
Well, I mean, sometimes you put them in your room for a while.
Yeah, that's different.
Well, not really. It's a form, but
So the governing body is my daddy now?
Well, no, but like I say, there's scriptures say that we have to know how to conduct ourselves in the household of God. Like I say, that's unacceptable for adultery and people like that, child abuse or stuff.
I understand all that.
So it's got to be dealt with. It's just that simple. You might not agree the way it's done, but
yeah, I totally don't agree with it.
But it's scriptural.
Because the thing is, when you go into these meetings with the elders, these judicial hearings and all that, they've already decided what they're going to do with you.
Sometimes.
And that's not cool. Because when I went through my first disfellowshipping back in '94, I was completely repentant. I knew how I felt. But those brothers had something against me, and they wanted me out. And like a good little witness boy, I took the punishment. I did everything. I went to the meeting, sat in the back of the Kingdom Hall, did all that. And then I got reinstated back in '97, '98. But then after I came back, I was treated with a stigma like, okay, I wasn't treated the way I was when I was before I got disfellowshipped. So they still looked at me like I had a mark on my head.
Well, let me tell you something. Now,
that's why I went inactive for 12 years.
Now, whenever somebody comes back to the organization after they've been disfellowshipped, I always go up to them. I say, listen, you getting ready to learn who your real brothers and sisters are. See, the thing of it is, if you was disfellowshipped, it's none of my business why. That's between you and your Creator. I don't need to know any details.
Right there, what you just said, it's between me and my Creator, not between me and the elders.
Well, like it goes back, same thing. It's their job to keep the
organization clean. Yeah.
And if they don't do it, what's going to happen to them? And if they don't do it right, what's going to happen to them? See, they've got, the Bible says they got a heavy responsibility on the rest of us. Just like Moses. Look at all the good stuff he done, but he was not allowed to go into the promised land because he didn't do things Jehovah's way. The society said there's going to be elders that died on Armageddon. You don't remember reading that? They've told them that.
Yeah. And see, that's another thing. If you ask any Jehovah's Witness, when Armageddon comes, they will tell you, if you're not a Jehovah's Witness, you're going to die at Armageddon.
I don't tell people that.
There's a lot of people that do.
A lot of people say a lot of things ain't true.
Exactly. That's
Who's the judge? Who's the judge?
Jehovah and Jesus.
Let me ask you something.
So that's why I'm like, right now, as long as I have a good heart and have good morals and treat people with respect and loving kindness and don't do, crazy stuff that the Bible condemns, I feel at peace. I feel more at peace right now with my relationship to God than I haven't in a long time.
Well, that's part of it. The thing of it is, brother give a talk entitled The Sin of Omission. It's not enough to not do things. We've got to be doing what we're supposed to do. So it's a balancing act in there. It's not just enough what you don't do, it's what you do. In other words, you got to be proactive. And we both know that the preaching work, the Bible commands us to go out and do it. So, you can't get it. That's a direct command from Jesus. So they go out and do this preaching work. Tell them about what's coming and stuff like that. That's another thing of love. You talking about showing love. If your neighbor's going to be destroyed in Armageddon and you don't warn him, how's that a loving thing on your part? See?
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
So, Brother Bill, good to talk to you, man.
Good seeing you.
Yeah.
Good seeing you. I appreciate you coming. I really do appreciate you coming by. I really do. That means a lot that you just found it upon yourself to just swing by here.
Yep.
That says something cool about you. Others come with a judging mission. I just have some issues right now, and you know, the UN, the child abuse, the shunning.
It goes back to the same thing. Where else is there to go?
Yeah, Jesus. Just believe in Jesus.
Yeah. Well,
And do the best you can to follow His example and live your life according to what He taught. You don't need. I'm sorry. You don't need an organization to tell you how to run your life and how to do this, how to do that, what you can wear, what you can't wear, what you can watch, what you can't watch. You don't need an organization like that to have a relationship with God.
well, I mean, what I've seen, they don't do that. They warn you about certain things. Now, going back to the blood issue,
they tell us they tell us how to live our life.
they give examples. You know, okay, they use the Psalms. What is it? Proverbs 37:11 is it? About any man who loves violence, Jehovah hates him. So if you like violent sports and stuff like that, what does that say about you? See, it don't say you can't watch them. It just tells you about that.
But that's putting them in a place where they can kind of judge you a little bit.
Well,
Just because you like a violent sport doesn't mean you're a violent person.
Well, it didn't say that. The Bible says whoever loves violence. See, Jehovah judges what's in the heart.
Oh, yeah.
Not what we do, but what's in our heart.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't commit immorality because they don't want to get caught.
Mm-hmm.
It's not they wouldn't do it if it didn't have the chance. See, it's just like Jesus said, you keep on looking at a woman with a passion, you know, you've already committed adultery in your heart. So He sees hearts.
I've never understood that one because I've actually looked at some girls and they're kind of hot, and it doesn't mean I just want to get in bed with them. It's like, wow, she's really beautiful. Okay. But in the JW world, I've just committed adultery because I looked at it.
No, if you keep on looking until you get a passion for it.
Okay.
That's what it says.
But I don't know. I'm in the process of doing a lot of research. Been reaching out to a lot of people that have been in the organization, people that are still in the organization. And there's actually thousands of people that feel the way I do right now.
Oh, I'm sure of that.
There's thousands of people.
Well, like I said,
and there's a lot of people that are hurt by the organization. A lot of people are going through emotional hardships because they've been cut off from their families, or they've been judged in a way that's unfairly. There's been so many people that have been abused by elders or a ministerial servant or a pioneer, and these people have to deal with that hurt they have to deal with that every day.
What we just hear recently about stumbling?
Oh, as far as I knew about stumbling, but the thing is, Watchtower stumbled me when they got in bed with the UN.
Well, the thing of it, the Bible said that, you know, people stumbling people. It's a very serious thing. So like I say, if these people are doing something wrong and they stumble people, it's going to be serious consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And that applies to the governing body.
Yeah, I mean, for them to be involved in the UN, that's a stumbling block for me.
Well, okay, now you said something earlier about blood and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't quite catch on what I'm talking about now. Now, I know we ain't supposed to have blood, but then it talks about the
blood fractions.
Yeah.
Are okay.
But after that, when stuff is deleted from there, that's a personal choice.
Yeah, but the thing is if you actually go and have that done, even though it's a personal choice, in the Shepherd of the Flock of God book, it says that that person has disassociated themselves if they make that conscious decision for themselves. The Shepherd of the Flock of God book says that. The Secret Elders book, I have it. I've read it. And when I told the circuit overseer that I have the book and I've read the book, you should have seen the look on his face.
Now, is that one of the Society publications?
You don't know about it?
Huh?
You don't know about it?
Uh-uh.
It's called The Shepherd, the Flock of God. It's a book that's given to only elders.
Oh, okay.
So that they can it basically gives the elders all their rules and regulations.
I knew they had information we don't have, yeah.
Yeah. So again, no transparency. Because if it's a transparent organization and everybody's united, why do the elders get a secret book to show them everything? And they're not. If a brother,
run this by me again now.
Okay.
All right, blood and the four main fractions of it we don't take. Now, are you saying that the other stuff's a matter of conscience? If they use the other stuff, That's a disfellowship and offense. Is that what you're saying?
Not the plasma expand, but if they take a blood fraction or anything that has blood in it, if they've looked at it as a conscious matter and they do that, then the body of elders will say that that person has voluntarily disassociated themselves.
Never seen it.
I can, if you'll text me, I can send you the information. I've got the, or if you call me or whatever, come back later, I'll show it to you. But that's in there. They flip-flopped on the blood issue. They flip-flopped on so many issues.
Well, the thing of it is, I wouldn't take any of it anyway. You know, my sister, we was talking about that the other day, and you know, what I've read about the blood and all that stuff, even from a worldly standpoint.
Yeah.
Even, you know, you look at Japan, they barely use it now anymore. They're getting away from it.
Yeah.
They know the dangers of it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's other things that you can use other than just blood itself. But if it comes down to a life or death emergency, and the doctor who has an education says, hey, you really need this if you're going to survive.
Well, to me, my understanding, what I've read on that, there's never been any proof that blood is any more superior than these, what do they call them, blood expanders?
Blood expander, yeah. Well, the blood has saved lots of lives.
Well,
and then again, there's been some tainted blood, and it's given people some diseases that they wouldn't have had in the
I've never
first.
seen anything where it does save lives. It's not any better. As a matter of fact, you know, that's what I'm talking about Japan and all that. You know, they found out that the blood expanders do better than blood.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
and getting away from it.
Yeah, and that's fine. But to disfellowship or just to voluntarily go ahead and kick somebody out of the congregation because they made a conscious matter, that's not biblical.
Brother Bell, take care, man.
All right, buddy. I gotta get ready for work now. I gotta go get a shower.
Catch you later.
All right, see you later.
Okay, so we went ahead and played the last 20 minutes or so because first Jimmy mostly talks about the child sex abuse problem in the organization. And of course, you can never get anywhere. You really can't ever get anywhere.
no.
They don't believe it happens. The guy he outright says he
count how
doesn't
many
know
times I've heard
anything
that.
about the ark. He says, how come the news never talks about it? And Jimmy's like, it's all over the news.
Yep.
But he doesn't read the news, probably because he doesn't have a cell phone with internet access. He doesn't look. They don't look. They're taught not to look. And like you were talking about, it's so
Terrified of it.
controlled and restricted to prevent them from losing their faith, because they're going to lose their faith if they find out that the organization.
It's not true.
Yeah, because it's not true.
It doesn't withstand scrutiny.
And we've been all, talked about the child abuse thing over and over again on various videos. So we don't need to go into a lot of detail about it. But what surprises me, and it doesn't surprise me, what's sad about it, like the New York law passed and the Child Victims Act. And that is huge. It's not just about witnesses. It's about all kinds of other organizations. And it was all over the country, international news. But no witnesses have ever heard of this. At least none of the ones that we seem to talk to.
None.
Do you never go to Google News, MSN, Yahoo News, anything?
Only if it's good news about Jehovah's Witnesses.
Or is it that as soon as they see a headline that says something negative, they just ignore it?
They do. They ignore it.
Push it away.
Yeah.
Apostate lies and half-truths.
That's
Satan's
because
world.
that's what the governing body has told them.
Yeah.
Right.
They have told them what their reaction should
Be
be
afraid to look
when it
into
comes
that.
to that.
And the only truth is at jw.org.
Yeah. And in that line, he starts talking, he keeps comparing shunning to disciplining a child.
Ugh.
And to which you said, so the governing body's my daddy now? But really, as funny as that is, yes, the governing body behaves
You're
as
such a smart
if
ass.
it is the daddy or the
awesome.
parent of witnesses.
And not just a parent, an abusive
An
parent.
abusive parent. Yeah.
Because I don't know, I would never treat my children like that. If the objective
wow.
is to correct their behavior, you don't correct their behavior by shunning them and taking away their sense of self-worth and treating them like they're not a person.
Yep.
Yeah. Unless they agree with every single thing that you tell
Right.
them to do.
So,
Even though it's constantly changing.
And it doesn't make any sense.
so the governing body is acting like an abusive daddy. Can we agree
Yeah.
with that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
how many abusive daddies are actually in that organization?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they are learning
Tons.
they are learning the traits of their father
Wow.
and passing it on.
Mhm.
Bingo.
That's one of the things
Well said.
Makes
I
sense.
noticed when I exited. I looked back at all the people I'd known, and almost everybody, there were a few exceptions, but almost everybody I knew was either abused or an abuser in the halls. My father was, his father's very physically abusive. And so I kind of think that was a draw toward the organization and its heavy-handedness for him. And that's another reason why he was in it. There was just so many people I knew that were very abusive individuals. A lot of the elders I knew were very abusive people. And some were super, super nice. And then you find out that they have abuse in their history.
I mean, the way I look at it, can you blame them? And why do I say that? You know, you look at the misogynistic Bible, and then you look at the misogynistic organization and how it encourages the sternness of men being that way and being the authoritarians and stuff like that. So, of course, maybe that power, that feeling of authority can go to their head, and that's how they act. You know?
Well, I mean, if you look, there's a famous quote that says, "Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." What do the governing body have over their members? Absolute power. They can get people to sell their houses and go out and
then
be
have way more
full-time
power
free preachers.
organization.
When they say 1975, they were glorifying people who sold their houses and liquidated their 401ks and went out to be full-time pioneers. They were glorifying that.
Yep.
They have the power to make people turn on their families, to make people leave their spouses, to make people quit their jobs, to make people sacrifice their children.
Yep.
They have absolute power. What does that do?
Yeah.
Wow.
Corruption.
So yeah, you'll definitely see abuse, abusive behavior, abusive tendencies.
It is an abusive organization run by abusive men that's based on an abusive book.
Yep.
And it's just a perpetuation of an ancient tribal viewpoint of the world.
Right.
No wonder they don't talk about Jesus.
They don't really. I mean, they
Because
have
Jesus
so-
wasn't
yeah.
abusive.
Yeah.
Right.
His whole approach is different. And I never made that
true.
connection
It is.
until I left. That Jesus is like a footnote for witnesses.
Talking
Yeah.
to the Samaritan woman.
Yeah.
They weren't even supposed to do that, right?
Right.
Yep, he wasn't.
But yet,
that.
but yet, because of all this abusiveness that they have going on and perpetuated into the organization over the number of years, they tell you they still say that they're Christ-like.
Yeah.
Or be Christ-like.
Even though, like we talked about on the
Pharisee-like.
our broadcast rebuttal, they quote a scripture that directly talks about Christ and then apply it to Jehovah.
Yeah.
It's like they never even want to talk about Jesus.
Jesus
they do
gets no
sometimes.
airtime
Yeah.
No.
ever.
He doesn't.
Now, which is the irony
He got
about
airtime
that.
at the rock festival, sorry. He was crowd surfing.
Well, you know, we were talking about, I've talked about that in some of the Kingdom Melody analysis videos.
He needed.
Because I've done a series of videos about the Kingdom Melodies too, and taking apart what ridiculousness that they had
I've
us
seen
singing.
those.
And you know, Jesus never, I mean, he's hardly ever mentioned.
Yeah.
And when he is, he's a footnote.
Yeah. And when they do talk about him, I think I don't know what I haven't read the new one, but they have a new book about Jesus' life. But I remember the Greatest Man book. And I always loved that book. But when I look back at it, and I look back at when they do talk about Jesus, they do talk about him. But he's so relegated to this other position. And often they use Jesus to talk about Jehovah.
Yeah.
So it's not really about Jesus, even when it's about Jesus.
Right.
And when I didn't make that connection because Jesus wasn't abusive. So they
Right.
can't really draw on that.
Yeah.
They have to draw on the other more abusive parts of the Bible, which, Old Testament. And Watchtower is all about the Old Testament, even though they say we're not under the law. They still
Controlling.
point to it.
Oh yeah, they take and pick
principally
all
all the
kinds of stuff from there
time.
that they can
The
get
two
away with.
witness rule
Cherry
comes
picking.
from Old Testament.
Yes.
You know? So
Yeah.
I hope they stop coming to my house.
I do too, Jimmy. Although it is very
do too,
entertaining.
because we've been recording for 3 hours. It is, what time is it?
It's late, man.
Late.
It's 10.
It's 10 o'clock.
Late. It's 10
past my
o'clock.
bedtime.
Let's get the hell out
I'm
of
too
here.
old for this shit.
But I got to talk about one more point. And
What you making us do, Watchtower?
the one word I have here is repression.
Yeah.
Because of what he was talking about there at the end about committing adultery and having, if you look at a woman with lust in your heart, you've already committed adultery.
Yeah.
I'm going straight to hell.
Every
I'm sorry. I was
Oh
just.
my God! So why?
so
why
doomed.
is it considered normal to look at a woman and think dirty thoughts, and all of a sudden you're a horrible person, when the repression that the Jehovah's Witnesses create is the reason for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
normal people don't go around looking at people and saying, "Oh, you're attractive." Oh, I mean that's not normal. But Jehovah's Witnesses do it.
And that's the point I was trying to make. I was like, man, I could be walking down the street saying,
society doesn't have to be so restricted.
But in my head, I was thinking, oh my God, I shouldn't even looked at her.
Right. But
Because
then these
now
people
you
wonder
get
why
all
they
the
can't have
go crazy.
relationships, how they don't know how to start a relationship.
Yeah.
Because they start from 0 to 60 in like half a second, because you have to start talking about marriage immediately or you
Right.
can't even date, which any normal woman is going to run like hell from, by the way.
Yep.
And then, so they're in this in between of like,
So true.
they're panting and foaming at the mouth because, oh my God, they're finally going to get some. And then, so they have to talk about it. It warps their ability to have relationships.
Made to live that way.
Yeah.
But then when
We
you
weren't
look
even
at
made
it,
to think that way.
exactly. When you look at it on the flip side, when you've been out for a while, and you're perfectly, I can look at it from my perspective at least, being in a long-term, committed, completely happy relationship, you can look at people all day and say, "You're attractive. You guys are
Right.
attractive. Great." It doesn't mean anything
Yeah.
except like you have a pleasant face. Congratulations. I mean, but if you're a witness, now it's to the point that if you say, "I like your suit, brother," you're going to get counseled.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Beth used to
insane.
complain before we met that she used to complain about people in the hall. She's like, they're not men, they're little boys.
Yep.
They're just large little boys.
All right.
Because they didn't know how to behave around women. They didn't know how to behave, especially because Beth is a strong woman, strong
Learn how to
personality,
be adults.
very intelligent,
Gorgeous.
very smart. That too.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Very
put up.
pretty.
And they didn't know what to do. They couldn't deal with her. They were used to these little submissive, women, and that's not her.
Right.
And so it never worked out. Now, I was
Hell no.
fortunate. I was very fortunate. Neither of my brothers, who I looked up to very much as a teenager, even though I was in the organization, they weren't. So the role model I had looking up to my brothers with how to deal with women was my brothers in their late teens, early 20s. So I didn't learn that very passive, scaredy, worried about what I'm going to say. Every little thing means something. I didn't get that. I didn't get that memo
had
because
balance.
I had
had
a
a little bit
balance
of balance.
viewpoint
Yeah.
from my brothers, and I sort of tipped the scale a little bit because of Watchtower and being a true believer, but it was nothing like what I saw in other people. So I was lucky in that way, because I feel very lucky to have Beth in my life, that I was not the passive little grown boy.
Or the flip side of that, which is overly aggressive. Because I did a video about dating as a Jehovah's Witness teen too, which it was just not a good sign.
What are you doing?
I actually had a brother one time ask me out on a date, but say, "Before we go out anywhere, I need assurance that you're going to marry me because I don't want to waste my money."
Are you serious?
And I said, let's just forgo dinner, okay? Because if you had any chance at all, you just blew it.
Wow.
Just blew it.
There are
dude.
so many.
That's the thing. We're not taught how to act.
Right.
There are so many failed marriages
Yeah.
because of Watchtower.
That's
Oh,
true.
yeah. People that shouldn't have ever been married in the first place.
Yeah.
My parents should never have married each
Mine
other.
either.
Ever.
Yeah. So
Mine
many
either,
people.
yeah.
I mean, marriages before the age of 20.
Yeah.
There's
That's the truth.
Statistically,
No.
they're doomed.
Yeah.
Getting married
Anyway.
before 20,
Yeah.
you're doomed. You're going to end
Because
up
you're not-
divorced
you're not-
or miserable.
You don't have the chance to
Or both.
experience
Yeah.
what it's like to actually be in a relationship or be in those social settings. Because
Right.
Yeah, and it seems like we're supposed to. It seems like that's part of our journey. We have to.
well, if you look at all the other people that back when we were in and all the worldly people that we were looking at, they were going off and they were dating. They were having
Yep.
these
Yeah, now they're more
experiences.
normal than the ones who stayed.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just sad that Watchtower has just set up everything that they do
They
to just destroy.
Yeah.
so many people.
It's just ridiculous, and that's why
It's awful.
That's why I work hard at my activism because
You do good, Jimmy.
I want to.
Yep.
Yeah, we all do good.
Yeah.
We all do good.
Yeah.
And everyone out there that's doing videos and in the activism, we're making a difference, guys. We really are.
I tell people, anyone who feels like they need to speak out should speak out. I completely recognize that there are some people who are just too triggered. It's too difficult. They're too hurt. They can't do it. That's fine. Don't hurt yourself
Right.
by any means. Take care of yourself. Unlike what we were taught in Watchtower, you are important as an individual. So take care of yourself first. Like they say in the plane, right? If the mask falls down, put your own on first before you try to help other people. And that's
Right.
very true in this situation. If you can't do it, don't do it. Take care
Right.
of yourself. But if you feel the need to speak out, there's a reason why you feel that need. And you should do it. Don't ignore it because you'll regret it.
And
If
there's
you have the ability, do
yeah,
it.
and there's many outlets that you can go to speak out.
Yeah. You don't have to make videos. You don't have to get in front of a camera. There's other ways to do it too.
Yeah.
You don't have to crash a cart.
I could never do that. I just don't.
Yes, you do, Joe.
If I crash a card, I'm going to end up just playing the wounded sheep again because it's just.
It works so
works.
well. It really does. It draws and record it all.
I can't. I would just start laughing in the middle of
I feel like what I'm doing is what I should be doing because
That's what I feel
it's
like.
clearly effective. It's working. And it's reaching a lot of people. I get a lot of positive feedback. Same thing with Beth and her channel, Stop the Shunning. And so I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And when I look over the last year, before we moved to Winston-Salem, I had no intention, no desire to do any of it at all.
Well, damn,
And it
Joe.
wasn't until we moved
Glad
to
you got into it.
Winston-Salem.
Yeah.
Beth felt the need. She felt motivated. She wanted to help people see the psychological damage
Right.
that Watchtower is causing because she was getting her degree in psychology. And so that really appealed to her. And even though it was against her nature to get in front of a
Timing
camera
was
and
right.
do that, she
And
did.
we all happen to be here.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And when I saw the response to hers
Yeah.
and the comments and how much it was helping people, that's when I realized I cannot do nothing.
Right.
I can't sit and do nothing. And so here we are.
Did y'all foresee that first meetup we went to back in March of this year that we'd be doing this?
No.
That's funny.
No. Not
And-
even a little.
Because of that, we're helping a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, mine started out as an attempt to try to speak to my family because they would not talk to me. And I would be coerced into these conversations and then not allowed to speak. And
Right.
it was, as you might imagine, infuriating.
Right.
Now we're
And so-
revolutionaries.
Right. So I made a video to my Jehovah's Witness family. And when I started making that video, I was thinking, well, now I have to explain what this means to anybody who stumbles upon it and doesn't understand the language. And so it became much longer because I was like, all right, so if you're not a witness, this is what this means. And the response to that was gigantic. And so I kept making videos. Well, I sat on that for a year before I actually posted it.
Did you really?
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah,
Wow.
I made it when we still lived in Richmond. And then I finally posted it after we moved to North Carolina. And I kind of got off on the sidetrack of comedy just because there was so much stuff that was absolutely ridiculous about being a witness that really I felt like nobody was touching. Like nobody was looking at how stupid the music was or, some of the subjects that they talk about incessantly and how ridiculous, the idea that, washing yourself in the shower too long was going to make you gay. I mean, the things that they talk, it was just crazy. And so, but yeah, I would never have imagined that I would have a YouTube channel and be making fun of Kingdom songs. All the time.
Your persona with the pearls. I love the one with the pearls.
So fun.
She cracks me up. That's
So
great.
one of my this is it's going to be a surprise in my next. Well, it will be a surprise now because I'm about to tell you. But one of my viewers actually sent me a pair of glasses like Beth's.
Oh,
God.
Cat eyes
Yeah.
with the rhymes.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. It is happening. And they're specifically for Pearline. So it's
You get
gonna,
like the
it's
wig,
gonna
you
happen.
know?
Oh, no wigs. No wigs. We're still keeping the worldly haircut.
Ooh.
I had to get worldly haircut.
all right, guys. Well, this has been a long but very productive discussion, I think. And I'm really grateful for you guys coming and spending so much time on this, and especially you two, because y'all came from Greensboro, and that's a long drive.
Yeah.
Jesus gets to drive 10 minutes home and go to bed.
That's why you guys can do videos without me.
Oh,
Wait.
Jimmy.
True.
We can do videos with that.
That's what we'll do. Yes.
We'll have a square table.
John,
Yes.
stop it. Do something.
A
Yes.
square table.
Yes. That's what me and Bridget.
That will have better music.
Oh,
Dueling
man, that is
videos.
it.
That's what we'll do.
Revolution.
But thanks everybody who stayed with us this long, or if you had to break up into parts, I totally understand. That's fine.
Yeah.
But remember, if you aren't already a member of Watchtower and you are on Facebook, there's a link in the video description. We have over 1,000 members already. It's a fantastic place to be. We also have a Discord server, which is a live chat server. Unlike Facebook, where you leave messages and people reply, you actually are you're chatting with each other directly. A lot of fun rooms, really great crowd in there.
That no man is able to number.
That no man is able to number.
I want to say something about Watching Watchtower.
Sure.
If you do decide to join the Watching Watchtower group, we do ask that we're different than other XJW sites.
Yeah.
We've had many people say that we're different than other ones because we really want to support folks. We don't want folks coming in there to start causing problems, start arguments. So we do have rules. We have a team of moderators, and to my moderator team, thanks, guys.
Yeah. They keep it
Likewise.
safe and they keep it friendly.
Yes.
And it's a lot of fun on that page. So don't think that it being safe and friendly means it's dull, because
No,
it's
'cause-
anything but that.
Yeah, because
true.
we've been known to kick people out.
That's true. When people get too preachy and too harsh with other people,
You're gone.
you're out. And you don't do that.
There's one thing I want to say, too, to all those that are physically out, mentally in. Watching Watchtower on Facebook is a private group, meaning that
That's
if
true.
you join it,
Yes.
your content, the posts that you participate in, they are not seen on Facebook. So naturally, I mean, there's always ways witnesses can find you out, granted.
Yeah.
But, you know, for a lot of people, because I get a lot of people asking me this and say, oh, I want to join Watching Watchtower. But yeah, I'm just afraid that my whole family's still in the truth, still witnesses, active witnesses, whatever you want to call it. They're going to see my post. It is a private group.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
Yeah.
And of course, we always thank Frank Rada
All right.
for our theme song. He's awesome.
The round table. So much fun.
He actually called
No
me.
more dancing. No more dancing.
He actually called me on FaceTime
Don't hate.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Why not?
We talked for a while.
I know.
Awesome.
Like, they're jealous of, like, my kick-ass dance moves.
I didn't get to dance.
Like, what's up with all the comments talking about, oh, I really expected more out of Diasis.
Yeah.
You know, you just sounded
Don't
like
hate.
you just sound like the dude in what is it? Oh, the Patriot.
No, you like my awesome dancing?
I've been online all day talking to hot babes.
Yeah, that's right. Napoleon, don't be
Yeah,
jealous
Napoleon.
because I've been talking, chatting online with hot babes.
Chatting online.
Napoleon
goodness.
Dynamite.
Oh, hell yeah.
All right, with that fantastic reference, don't forget to like the video if you liked it. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification icon so that you get notified when we release new videos. And as always, thanks for watching.
Thank you, everyone.
The round table is talking to you. Watchtower, haven't a clue. JW's falling like flies, waking up from the years of the lies. The round table is talking to you, clearing the way so you can leap to. The round table won't Watchtower Live.